All right, closing my door and then we're live. Uh, that is going to be a bigger feat than it sounds like. Closing the door. Let me grab my cane. Door? Huh? Okay. Okay. All right. All right. Let's see what we got. All right. So bear with me, y'all. Now, my hope is like nobody shows up, but I see there's already three people here. I was hoping like if I did this late enough at night, like I'd just be going about myself. Um, but what I actually realized, what made me want to do this is, oh god, one second. Oh dear, apologies for the echo. Matter of fact, I'm rushing. I scheduled the live so that hopefully I would already like have my meds and stuff by then. Um, but then turns out that the meds weren't on the floor, and so they had to wait and get them from the pharmacy, and so I was waiting for that. Um, oh boy, I think I'm going to regret not using this settings for more. Okay, I feel like I'm all over the place, but just in case somebody comes in and sees this, this will not be available for replay. Um, so there's that, but you can replay it until the live ends, and so um, because of that, guess I'll just explain. I am currently in the hospital. So this live, I don't know how long it's going to be. I was just about to say it won't be too long, but that's really just going to depend on like how I'm feeling, what I'm doing, what's happening here. I've never gone live from the hospital before. I've gone to class. I've had meetings from the hospital. I've done a lot of things from the hospital, which is like excuse me, which is like the nature of having a chronic illness like that I have. If I never did anything from the hospital, I'll say if most of us, if we never did anything in the hospital, we might never get anything done. Um, so I don't always do it. I will often delay, postpone, whatever. Um, but since it's just me these days, and I'm hoping the audio is decent. I don't have my regular mic, but I have the lab mic, um, which I'm hoping is connected and working. I sort of tested it and it seemed like it was working. Um, I'm all over the place. And I'm all over the place because I've never done a research stream before, but I have seen them done. I enjoy them when I'm watching other people's research streams. Keep pulling up my sleeve, but then I kind of don't want this like information to show, but hopefully you can't see it. I don't think you can see it from here. Anyways, because I'm probably gonna keep pulling up my sleeve. But anyways, I've seen research streams done. I think the most recent I saw was Mika from Mika's Rhetoric. Um, I really enjoy their channel. Um, did a research stream for like the most like Dramageddon Part 2 or something like that. I'm not really super familiar with Dramageddon or the drama from the beauty community, but that's what she was researching. I do enjoy them, and so what we're gonna do now that I have the ability, the capacity to share media myself, and don't necessarily need to wait for to have like a stage manager do live streams. Um, That's what we're gonna do. We're gonna do some research, and I'm gonna start by telling you how we got here. This topic. Oh shit, my bad. Um, so Tuesday, I was watching. I was watching. I was in a live. I was moderating a live. I'm trying to be mindful of what I say and how I say it. This light is pretty awful. Let's see if I can fix that for y'all. Oh, hmm. Oh, mm, mm. Yep, I think that's the best yet. I think that's the best that we're gonna do as of right now. Um, anyways, Tuesday I was in a live stream. Live stream kind of went south for a second. There was somebody in the live stream that was reminds me a lot of myself when I was younger. Um, how do I say? Just very just like self righteous, very like you know how like the young folks say standing on business, or how we used to say like standing 10 toes down on something. Um, so I get it, right? Like I get like when you believe you know something, or when you feel a certain way about something and you feel really strongly about it, and you have this very black and white thinking where it's like, no, this is right. And if you don't believe this, you are not a great person. You are unsafe. You are a bad person. You are whatever else. And I'm saying I get it because I've been there. I've feel all exposed. Now I keep my stuff neat usually, and this is a mess. And it's gonna bother me. Need to be still before I cause myself more pain. Anyways, I get it. Like when you feel strongly about something and you have these beliefs, anybody who sort of like differs with that belief can seem unsafe, and in many ways they might actually be unsafe, right? You know, somebody who has certain beliefs about black people probably isn't the safest person for me to be around. Somebody who has certain beliefs about trans folks, or feels like, you know, it's up for debate, trans matters are up for debate, which they're not, especially if you are not trans, do not have trans people in your life. You know, trans people exist. They have always existed. They will continue to exist. And how you feel about them is not really relevant. It's not something that we need to discuss. Um, but I get it. I get having very strong feelings about something, and you know when somebody else has feelings that counter those, that they feel unsafe to you, or you feel the need to be vocal about that, right? And the reason I say when I was younger is because as I've gotten older, I very much learned like I've gotten better about nuance, and I've very much learned that we can have not so great opinions. We can have maybe shitty takes even, and still not be shitty people, right? And so we don't need to necessarily treat people as though they are shitty, terrible, unsafe people because they have uh, a particular shitty, unsafe take. Now they might be terribly shitty, unsafe people, right? But um, making that like sort of moral judgment based on something so small, or not something so small, excuse me, I don't want to misspeak, but based on one thing and one thing alone. Sorry, it's a medication alarm. Um, it can just be very dangerous, right? And it got me to thinking, one, this is not the first time this person has been combative, right? The person in the chat was in a live chat when this stuff started happening. This is not the first time this person's been combative. I have been able to back them up and defend them in the past because somebody said, "Oh, I had to block so and so because they said white people don't experience racism." Okay, well, you need to block me too because white people don't experience racism. That's not how racism works. No such thing as reverse racism. I said what I said, right? Um, there's a difference between speaking up, being vocal, saying what you got to say, meaning it, standing 10 toes down on it, and being combative, or spamming, even, right? Um, if I'm moderating somebody else's live chat, I have to remember. it's not about me. And so I might go back and forth for a bit. But when I see it's not going to go anywhere, or hey, this isn't productive, or hey, we are derailing the conversation and this isn't my conversation, this isn't my live chat, I'm going to just attempt to, as a moderator, it's my job to just like shut it down, steer us, let's get us back on track, right? Um, only ever had to mute, timeout, kick two people. And that is when those people refuse to stop derailing the conversation and allow the chat to get back on track, right? Um, this person already had multiple complaints. Um, I had received Discord messages, DMs about this person. Said I would pay closer attention to the chat because I hadn't been paying attention to the chat. I just saw kind of some messages here or there about them being combative and da, 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 and I hadn't been paying attention. So I started paying closer attention. And then this thing happened where we go back and forth about, deaf and hard of hearing matters or whatever. And I'm trying to say, yeah, that's one take. That's not the full story. And um, I don't remember like the specifics, but I do remember saying like that's not how everybody feels, right? Like they like you even as a disabled person, I don't speak for the entire disabled community, right? I remember making a comment the other day that said um, it was on this doctor's page where this teen had lost like half his body, right? And I left a comment and said, for those feeling the urge, for those about to call him inspirational, don't. Like, just refrain from doing it, right? And of course, you had several able people who don't like to hear that he is inspiration. He's an inspiration, and like da da da. What makes him inspiration? Well, because I mean, if I was disabled, I would just kill myself. So your ableism is what makes him inspirational. Okay, cool, 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 cool. Or other disabled people saying, "My so and so daughter is sitting here would disagree with you." And I said, "Congratulations, you just discovered the disabled community is not a monolith." Right? But it also got several hundred likes because there are plenty of disabled people who have said, "Do not call us inspirational for just existing. I do not want you to call me inspirational for just living with my disability." That's whack, bro. Like that's not a compliment. It really, if anything, it speaks to your beliefs and your feelings about disability and ableism and all those things. Is not a compliment. If anything, it's just revealing your own personal thoughts on the matter. And still, not, I don't speak for all disabled people in that. Now, I said on behalf of disabled people everywhere. What I did not say was on behalf of all disabled people. I think like people really need to understand that people do we as people do a lot of like projecting and hearing things in our own words and our own voice and through our own like frame of reference, right? So if I say on behalf of disabled people everywhere, that is not the same thing as saying on behalf of all disabled people. It's not the same thing. There are disabled people everywhere, and I have had the great privilege of being in community with disabled people all over the globe, and this is a sentiment that is held by disabled people all over the globe. Not all disabled people all over the globe. You see how words mean different things, and depending on what order you put them in, you have different meanings, right? Like you see that? You see that? You see how that works, right? So, anyways, I'm just making a point that none of us get to speak for an entire community. And that's something that I needed to remember. And even though in that moment I was so frustrated because I did what I said I would never do, which was talk about my own situation in terms of hearing and hearing loss and hearing impairment. And part of the reason I don't talk about it is because of my experience with the deaf community. It has not really been pleasant always, right? Um, but what I had to remember was we hear from the loudest, right? So when we're hearing from the deaf community, the deaf and hard of hearing community, we're hearing from the loudest among them, right? The advocates, those who are online, who have an online presence and who are really speaking up. And so tonight I want to do a bit more research because I started to do some research before this because I knew I wanted to like discuss this, but I knew I wanted to do it differently than we had done handled some other topics in the past. I needed to figure out how I felt about some things. I remember talking to Kimmy about some things, and um, her telling me to make sure I use the words deaf and hard of hearing and to not use the words hearing impairment. Um, and me having questions about that, but then also not feeling comfortable saying like, okay, but there are people who identify as hearing impaired. Like, do they not matter, right? And I'm saying that because I'm somebody who has been identified as having an impairment when it comes to my hearing, as well as my vision, right? I will say visually impaired. I don't say blind. I don't call myself blind. I'm not legally blind. I do have significant impairments when it comes to my vision, though. And to like constantly be told like that's not appropriate, don't say that, like it's just frustrating. um I will say I do often hear it more from advocates and allies than from other blind people or other deaf people or even other disabled people. Like when it comes to person first language, I hear the people that I hear advocating for person first language more than anyone else are abled allies. I can probably count the number of disabled people who I have heard advocating for person first language in the last probably year. Most of the times, the people who are advocating for person first language are allies or advocates, the loudest, right? I personally hate person first language. I am not Smalls with sickle cell. I am not Smalls with a disability. I don't put my disability in a backpack and take it with me. My disability absolutely defines me. It is not the only thing that defines me, but it is so much of what defines me because I was born with it. I was diagnosed at 2 days old. So and not only was I diagnosed at 2 days old, but my mom had been told while she was still pregnant with me that there was a 25% chance that I would be born with this illness. I would be born with this disability. And then obviously she was given the opportunity to terminate and, do you sure you want to go through this? There's a good chance, blah, blah. You know, one of the first few things that my mom knew about me when I came into this world was that I was a black baby, obviously, right? But my genitals, obviously, girl, because I am cis. Um, so girl, assigned female at birth, black, disabled, and that I would be chronically ill. Didn't know what that would look like, how that would manifest, but those are things that have absolutely helped to shape, mold, and define my identity, and I'm okay with that. And I get so frustrated and irritated when other people try to take that away from me or try to tell me, "Well, you don't need to define yourself by your disability." Bitch, mind your business. You don't get to tell me how to define myself. You don't get to tell me how to identify. And the same thing happened during that chat where I said, well, I have, and again, where I would normally say I have hearing impairment, I was recalling the conversation that I had with Kimmy about not saying hearing impairment. So I'm like, well, I don't want to say that in this space. I still say it, right? I just noticed that I'm mindful of where I am and what space I'm in when I say it. And then, in that space, especially with Kimmy there as the moderator, like I wasn't going to say it. So um, I said, I am hard of hearing. And immediately, as soon as I said it, I hated that I said it because I don't identify as hard of hearing. I don't identify as deaf. I do not identify as hard of hearing. I identify as somebody who has hearing impairments. I identify as somebody who has vision impairments. That's just me. Now, maybe this is the like person first language versus identity first language argument again, and I'm on the other side of it. I don't know. I don't know, but that's how I identify, and I'm okay with that. And there's a number of reasons that I do not identify as hard of hearing or deaf. And to me, it is not that different than me being somebody who is gender queer and gender non-conforming who does not identify as trans. It has nothing to do with transphobia or transmisia. Quite the opposite. In fact, it's the reverence and respect that I have for the trans community is why I do not identify as trans. Right? In some ways it almost feels like I don't want to say that I'm not trans enough because it's not like about enough because that's how I feel about disability, right? Like there's no like threshold of like disabled enough that you need to meet before you are disabled. I don't believe that for a second. But I know what feels right for me, and I know that diagnosis is not the same thing as identity. And maybe this will change one day down the line, right? Like maybe I will feel differently about this, but right now this is how I feel. This is how I felt about it for years. Um, I know when it comes to, well, anyways, I'll leave it there. Because I want to start doing some like research and getting into some things that were said. Harpreet Singh, Waheguru Ji, Waheguru. I don't even think I introduced myself. I'm so used to like this is such a different stream. I didn't really introduce myself or do an intro of any sort. I just kind of like came on here and started talking about what we are going to talk about. But this is a bit of a different stream. This is we're going to be doing some research. So, you know, you're going to be learning along with me, and that's something we're going to do a bit more of. We're going to be doing some like learning, live learning. A lot of what I do preparing for streams or as a producer in general is a lot of research, a lot of learning, combing through media, taking notes, putting together my thoughts, and then writing, scripts and like that's a lot of what I do even before when I'm working on other projects, right? That's a lot of what producing is and writing is a lot of research. And so we're gonna be doing a little bit more live learning. And so I figured tonight would be a good like test case, like a good test scenario, right? So anyways, let's get started officially. Welcome. If you're seeing this later, I don't know how because it's not supposed to be kept up. Um, so let's just start here. Waheguru Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ki Fateh. Smalls here. What up, y'all? I'm on Chumash and Tongva land. Currently, I am still on Chumash and Tongva land here in Southern California, but I am in a different part of Southern California because I am not home. I am in the hospital. I'm not gonna say which one, but I am still in Southern California. But I don't know if that changes, if it gets more specific than Chumash and Tongaland. I'm not sure. I'll have to look that up. Anyways, my pronouns are she, her. Uh, I am a black Sikh, and this is Black and Sick. And that's that. Let's see. Harpreet Singh says, Waheguruji, you're Alan Clements. Defining yourself isn't what you are born with, it's your experiences and character that you built and made into who you are. Sure, that is a great perspective to have. And I think that is, if that's how you feel, yeah, I can honor that. I can definitely, um, I can see that. I don't think that is would be my definition for me, but yeah, I don't disagree with that definition. I think that is, it's based on the individual, right? I used to do this thing where I said, "Oh, well, I'm black before I'm a woman," because my parents didn't know what gender I was going to be, but they knew I was going to be black. There's a whole myriad of reasons that doesn't work, that trying to separate gender and race doesn't work, at least here in America. I would imagine globally, but like here in America it doesn't work. Like you really cannot separate, and I didn't understand it at the time, and people were trying to explain it and I didn't get it. I absolutely get it now. Not only is there a certain level of like another layer of like oppression that happens at the intersection of gender and race, but it is just a completely different experience. My experience as a black woman is going to be different than the experience of a black man or a white woman or a white trans person, trans woman, or a white trans man or a black trans woman, like, or black non-binary like it's just going to be different and they cannot be separated. Like I do not move through the world as a black genderless person, right? That's not how I'm perceived. That's not how I move through the world. I move through the world as a black woman, and those two things cannot be separated. So there's no such thing as like, well, let's worry about the black issues first, and then we'll get to the woman stuff. Like, no, then we'll get to the like, no. Especially as somebody who is more mask presenting on a regular basis. Even though I am not gay, I am perceived as such. I am a sort of assumed to be such a lot of the time, and so even that factors into how I am seen and perceived and how I move through the world. Ever. So we're gonna let's get into this thing. The question is, uh, this pride that deaf and hard of hearing folks have, where a lot of deaf and hard of hearing folks do not call themselves disabled. They are allowed to not call themselves disabled. Anybody who does not want to be labeled as disabled, you get to identify, like you get to define and label yourself however the hell you want, right? There is no argument here. You will never, and not only is there am I not going to argue against that, I will argue and fight for your right to identify however the hell you want. Having said that, so often the root of that is ableism. The root of that is this fear of the word disabled, is this fear of the stigma of disability, is trying to, separate and distance yourself from disability and the word disabled and the stigma that comes along with it and the way that society treats disabled people, right? Like, I hate phrases like, the only disability is a bad attitude. That's why you're in a wheelchair, right? So when you go to your insurance company and they say, do you qualify? You say, nope, I don't qualify because I don't qualify for having this chair covered because I don't have a bad attitude. Like it's just not how it works. Like the sentiment, just it doesn't work in theory, it doesn't work in practice. It's just a silly sentiment to say the only disability is a bad attitude, or to say something like, um, I'm not disabled, I am differently abled. Okay, bro. Sure. All right. I think, again, there's just too much value judgment and stigma on certain words. Like, words just mean things. Disabled just means lacking an ability to do something, like, right, like not having the capacity to do something. Like, that's it. Like, all that extra shit is society's, it's contextual, and it's society's bullshit that we have to like deal with. It ain't, I'm not, no. So anyways, I just feel like a lot of it is rooted in ableism, and I have never understood the sentiment that a lot of deaf, and hard of hearing people hold when they say, I don't have a disability because deafness, deaf gain, or like I get it, right, in theory, but also it still feels rooted in ableism and this like desire to distance themselves from disability. However, I'm open to that not being the only reason, and I'm open to there being valid reasons that are not rooted in ableism. Does that make sense? So, anyways, let's start with some things that I found. Matter of fact, let me just share. We're gonna screen share. Hold on one second. Let me see. Again, this is a research stream, so there's gonna be pauses. There's gonna be silence. There's gonna be dead air. All that good stuff. Um. Oh, let me share screen share. To share audio, share a tab or entire screen instead. Great, great, great. There we go. Okay, I'm gonna see. Okay, you know what? Here's one. I'm gonna pull up NAD. If you know, you know. There's a medication alarm. My apologies. Um. Oh, here's a Reddit thing. I do love Reddit for research like this. But let's just see. Okay, community and culture frequently asked questions. What is the difference between a person who is deaf or hard of hearing? Uh. Okay, deaf communities are diverse with people identifying as deaf, deaf blind, deaf disabled. Now that's the first one. That's the first time I've heard that. Deaf disabled. I don't 100% know what that means, but okay, deaf disabled. Hard of hearing and late deafened, which I assuming is what I think it is. Um, Jesus, I need to clean my glasses. There are variations in how a person becomes deaf, level of hearing, age of onset, educational background, communication methods, and cultural identity. Speaking of, with the deaf community, there's this whole thing about like capital D deaf and little D deaf, which I think we'll probably get into as we do some more research. But that has always been like interesting to me. The last thoughts that I've heard on the matter from somebody who is deaf or hard of hearing is that they do not use the capital D, because it sort of creates this. God, I wish I had their exact words. We have this exchange on Twitter, so I imagine if I went and like researched it, I could probably find it. Maybe I will. But they were just explaining why they don't use the capital D deaf, and it has to do with like elitism, and I understood it at in the moment, so we'll see. Um, okay, let's see. How people identify themselves is personal and may reflect identification with the deaf communities, the degree to which they can hear, or the relative age of onset. For example, some people identify themselves as late deafened, indicating that they became deaf later in life. Other people identify themselves as deaf blind, which usually indicates they are deaf and also have some degree of vision loss. Now, it's so interesting that here they use the term vision loss, but okay. Anyway, over the years, the most commonly accepted terms have come to be deaf, deaf blind, deaf disabled, hard of hearing, and late deafened. That's what the first sentence said. Anyway, um, individuals can choose an audiological or cultural perspective. It's all about choices, comfort level, mode of communication, and acceptance. Oh, fascinating. Not me agreeing with Nad. Oh no, not me agreeing with Nad this early on. Because I remember when I said in the chat, uh, I don't identify. I said something about hard of hearing. They were like, "That's deaf," and I'm like, "Yeah, no, but I'm not deaf though, right? Like that's my choice. Is it not my choice to say I have hearing impairments?" Anyways, but then if I choose to say I have hearing impairments, but that's an inappropriate term, these are things that lead me to constantly feeling like, well, this is why I don't would never consider myself a member of the deaf or hard of hearing community, right? Like because I consider myself hearing impaired or somebody who has hearing impairments, right? Um, what is wrong with the use of these terms? Deaf mute, deaf and dumb, or hearing impaired? Deaf, deaf blind, deaf disabled, hard of hearing, and late deafened people have the right to choose how they wish to be identified, either as a group or on an individual basis. However, there have been alternative terms used, which are often seen in print, heard on radio and television, and picked up in casual conversations all over. Okay, now deaf and dumb, I feel like deaf and dumb and deaf mute, if you are confused about why those are not appropriate, then we wrong stream, because we're not going to cover that here. That's that you gotta come take a screenshot and then go back and read this, or go to the NAD website or something, because deaf and dumb is that should be obvious. Deaf mute, um deaf people are not mute. So that should be another obvious one. Mutism is a thing. Deaf people are not inherently mute. Those are two different things. Okay. Hearing impaired. This term is no longer accepted by most in the community, but was at one time preferred. I do remember that time, largely because it was viewed as politically correct. To declare oneself or another person as deaf or blind, for example, was considered somewhat bold, rude, or impolite. At the time, it was thought better to use the word impaired along with visually, hearing, mobility, and so on. Hearing impaired was a well meaning term that is not accepted or used by many deaf and hard of hearing people. For many people, the words deaf and hard of hearing are not negative. Instead, the term hearing impaired is viewed as negative. The term focuses on what people can't do. It establishes the standard as hearing and anything different as impaired or substandard, hindered, or damaged. It implies that something is not as it should be and ought to be fixed if possible. To be fair, this is probably not what people intended to convey by the term hearing impaired. When in doubt, ask the individual how they identify themselves. Now, I think all of that is valid. And here's what I will say. Um, about like hearing being the default, as it says, it establishes the standard as hearing and anything different as impaired. I don't see, and the only frame of reference that I have for this really is I have race, but I also have disability, right? And we talk a lot about like white folks being the default. Now, I know why that would be problematic. to see whiteness and white people as the default, as the standard to which all things are measured, that's a problem. We know that. Um, and I try not to use race to compare a lot of things. So I'm trying to. So here's what I'm just sort of thinking out loud at this point. It seems I don't know exactly how to word it. It seems sort of like contradictory in a way to say like, well, there's nothing wrong with the terms deaf or blind or hard of hearing. Um, but then to not be able to accept that like deafness or not hearing, it's a little bit confusing. Hold on one second. Got it, got it. Harpreet says hard times make people be at their best. They can do that. It's time for vital signs. That's okay. I'm just gonna turn this a little bit just so I don't catch you on camera. Okay, this says, do you identify as disabled slash consider deafness a disability? And this says, let me see. I am learning ASL, and I have been visibly, physically disabled since birth. In learning ASL and learning about the community and the culture, I have recently learned that some deaf, and here they do the lowercase d as well as capital D, folks feel that being deaf isn't a disability. This is fascinating to me as a physically disabled person with lots of things I just plain cannot do. The line of thinking is essentially that you can do everything while being deaf. Yeah, I love that. So here's some comments. I saw this one earlier, and this is the post that sort of made me realize, like, oh, I should do this like live research type thing and see if anybody else has any thoughts on the matter. Um, Sticky comment. This is a hotly debated topic in deaf spaces. Be civil, please. I don't know. Oh, that's a mod. Some deaf, hard of hearing people don't consider themselves to be disabled. In their minds, they can do everything a hearing people can. They can do everything hearing people can do except hear. Imagine if everyone knew sign language and there was closed captions everywhere, then their disability wouldn't be a problem. True, except everybody doesn't know sign language and there are not closed captions everywhere. And so in the world that we live in, it's a thing that is impairing, impacting their lives, right? Like if every place was accessible, man, that'd be fascinating. Um, if I didn't have to worry about accessibility, if I didn't have to worry about the stigma of needing pain medication, having an illness that is the hallmark of which is just pain, like and organ damage, but mostly just pain, right? That would be lovely. It would be fascinating. I would be fighting right now trying to find a new medication that works because of all the stigma surrounding the medication that I've been on for the last 4 years that works perfectly fine, but stigma means it's hard to get it. It means it's hard to, yes, I can imagine a world like that. And I can also know that that's not the world that we live in, right? Like, so I'm still trying to think of how it's not rooted in ableism. Like, I'm still trying to, because I do feel like currently this might change. The goal is to change my mind. I'm trying to change my mind. I'm trying to understand. I'm trying to understand how, like, because right now I just feel like this whole like I do think deaf pride is a thing. I also think that there's some deaf pride that is, you know, that there's some ableism being disguised as deaf pride. Like that's just how I feel. Like, don't call me disabled, and it's like you look up the word disabled and you're like, but you but you fit this definition though. Okay, but no, I won't call you. Okay, that's cool. I won't do that. Um, as somebody who does music, my hearing impairment when it started, oh boy, you better believe that impacted me negatively, and you better believe that that is a loss for me. And for me, it's not about. It doesn't matter. It wouldn't. And see, that's the thing. Maybe that's another way that it's different. Because for me, if everybody knew sign language and maybe in-ear monitors were cheap and I didn't have to use headphones, like that wouldn't give me back the things that I have lost from having my hearing impacted. You know, I don't know. I don't get it. Oh, kudos to you. Kudos right back at you, Harpreet. Appreciate you. Um, Okay, so let's read this. So this is by Oh My Mozzarella. This is from like a year ago. Some deaf and hard of hearing people don't consider themselves to be disabled. In their minds, they can do everything a hearing person can do except hear. Imagine if everybody knew sign language and there was closed captions everywhere, then their disability wouldn't be a problem. I don't think their disability is a problem now. That's the thing. That's what I'm saying. Like, y'all only see disability problem, and I don't see that. I just feel like disability just is. Like, there is no like value judgment on it. It just is. Like, even when it comes to my illness, like it sucks, but it just is. Like, I don't feel like I'm not walking around like, oh, I got this problem. It sucks so bad. I'm like, I got a whole chronic illness, bro. My life is just different than yours. Like if I'm saying I'm in the hospital, for me it's like I ran down to the local CVS. Like that's how it is on y'all's level. Like, right? Like that's how I say, like, try to explain to other people how much like going to the hospital is not just a big deal for me. It's just it's just part of my life. I know this will not be the last time I'm in the hospital. It's not the first time I've been in the hospital. It's not the last time. Might not even be the last time I'm in the hospital this year. Anyway, there's just this stigma with disability, as non-disabled people inherently view disabilities as a bad thing instead of just a neutral thing. That, to me, this is the key phrase right here. There is just this stigma with disability, as non-disabled people inherently view disabilities as a bad thing instead of just a neutral thing. I would go so far as to say people people, and this includes disabled people, because internalized ableism is a thing. People inherently view disabilities as a bad thing instead of just a neutral thing, instead of just a thing that is. Like, sometimes I got to use a wheelchair. It's just a thing that is. Like, it's not a bad thing. If anything, like, people want to apologize for like me needing to use a wheelchair. Nigga, no, I am grateful for this chair. Not only am I so lucky and blessed to have a chair that fits me, to have a manual lightweight chair that I can pick up with one hand, throw in my car, that's easily accessible, that I can use even when I'm in pain, even when I'm in crisis, right? That it gives me greater independence, because without it, I would be stuck at home a lot more. Like, the wheelchair is a thing that improves my life, not takes away from it. I'm not wheelchair bound. I'm a wheelchair user. Like, I use this thing to help improve my quality of life. My bad. I didn't mean to color the mic like that. But I use this thing to help improve my quality of life. My disability is not a bad thing inherently. It doesn't make my life inherently bad, miserable, less than. It's just a thing. It's just neutral for me. And I don't know that always felt like that, but any internalized ableism I was dealing with, it wasn't this type. Because I've always understood that, like, oh yeah, I got to do things differently or extra or whatever, but I'm okay with that. It is what it is. Also, I've always accepted that there are just some things I will not be able to do. I will never have a pool party for my birthday. I have to have a heated pool. I can't go in a regular pool. I can't just go to the beach and hop in the ocean unless I want to be in the hospital later that night. Like, there are just some things I cannot do. No amount of making the world more accessible will make those things a thing that I can do. You know? Disability is defined as a loss or inability to do something. And see, that's the thing. I feel like a lot of times I feel like deaf and hard of hearing people are focused on the loss part, because I always hear, disability is about loss, but we have deaf gain. We gain access to a rich culture and great. I feel the same way as somebody with sickle cell, right? I gained access to this whole world, this entire community that I absolutely love and adore. I spent 45 minutes on the phone with one of the directors of MLK's emergency room because of an experience I had. And I said, hey, you guys need to do a better job. You guys are a well run hospital, but this experience that I had was completely unacceptable. And here's how you can change it. Here's how you can fix it. Here's how you can do better, right? It's 45 minutes on the phone advocating for the sickle cell community. Because even though I have no intention of going there ever again, there are other people with sickle cell who will, and they need to not have the same experience that I had, right? So I absolutely gained access to that entire culture and entire community. I understand the idea of deaf gain. I do. Um, the opposite of that is not lost though. I feel like that's where like the internalized ableism is at, right? Like people can only see disability as a loss, but it's also just an inability to do something, a capacity, and it's an inability to hear, an inability to walk, an inability to, right? It's not necessarily a loss, like especially if you were born with it, right? Like somebody who's born with my chronic illness, my disability, like there's some things I didn't lose, like I just never had them to begin with, and so I did gain things. It doesn't mean I don't still have a disability though. I'm gonna keep reading. Again, I'm looking for my mind to be changed, not for things that agree with me. So let's keep going. But yeah, here, disability is defined as a loss or inability to do something. Some deafies are like, this isn't a loss to me, but a gain as I have access to. Oh, said that. Uh, some deafies are like, this isn't a loss to me, but a gain as I have access to a rich culture and community, especially those who grew up in signing environments, deaf schools, signing families, and thus grew up with access. To me, however, when deaf people don't consider themselves to be disabled, this sounds like internalized ableism, as there are a lot of intersectionalities between the deaf community and the disabled community. Both groups want the responsibility of equity to be put on those in power and not on the disabled people. And both groups want recognition that everybody has value regardless of ability. Who said this? This one deserves an award. I realize awards are new things, but if I could give this person an award, I would. Can I? I don't. How do you give awards? Do I just click on it? I don't know how to support your favorite contributor. Okay, I'll figure this out later because I'm trying to figure out. Do I just? I don't know. Anyways, okay. Um, that deserves an award, and I need to save it. Oh, somebody responded. Hopefully, this is okay to ask, but how does them being able to do everything hearing people can do except hear have an influence on whether it's a disability or not? Couldn't the same be said for a blind person or even a person who uses a wheelchair? I can do everything you can except see or walk. Um, the person responded, it doesn't. They consider it more of a culture, like being Italian or French, which I think that perfectly sums up why I do not identify as deaf or hard of hearing or trans. And it's for me, it's out of respect for that culture, right? Like right now I'm in a place with my hearing impairments where I can get away with just using headphones a lot of live captions. Technology has come so far that live captions help. Using video chat helps, where I can see people's mouths and body language, and that kind of help piece things together. Um, yeah, plus one or one plus for the last paragraph. I'm not disabled. This is by exterminate, I guess. Uh, plus one for the last paragraph. I'm not disabled. Always drips with offense about being lumped in. I think that's supposed to be being lumped in with one of those disabled. Instead of acting like being deaf is too good for being disabled, removing the stigma from the word is more important. See, I agree with this. That's the same sentiment that I feel, where it's like somehow the deaf and hard of hearing community is like better than disabled community. And God forbid you use disability as like your frame of reference or your comparison. You about to get that that's when the spam starts. Uh I gotta say that was wild. I wasn't entirely surprised, but it was like I went from I don't even want to say ally, but like allied to enemy with one sentiment, right? And then all of a sudden, and when I try to like let's steer the conversation back because this conversation is not about me, so I don't need to. I'm not somebody who needs to continue to argue, right? Either I know what I'm talking about or I don't. I just said, okay, you got it. You're right. Cool. Let's get back on track, right? Okay, cool. You're right. I've said you're right. Cool, cool, cool. And then you just keep going and keep going and keep going. And now there's five messages back to back of you going on and on about this. And it's like, bro, you are so far off topic. Chill. Harpreet says a new subscriber Smalls. I think because all sort of things, or maybe because of stereotypes or superiority complex, E's world has suffered a lot. So, being six, I must say it is our duty to spread the message of love, which, as Eastern Sikhs of Punjab, have failed to do so. Yeah, we're not perfect, right? That's the one thing I always say about like any religion, any faith practice, especially somebody who's come from one faith to another faith, but also studied a lot of different religions. There, the religions themselves, even if you find one that's perfect, and it's fascinating because I do think Sikhi is nearly perfect. Six aren't. We as people are not perfect, right? Um, I think Sikhi is a damn near perfect religion, a perfect faith practice. And I say damn near because there's one thing about it that makes me kind of like, I feel like we could be more open and whatever. Um, but six are not perfect. We're humans. Humans are fallible, right? So upside down, hey, yo, what up? What up? Good to see you. Um, Okay, so I'm gonna keep going. I'm gonna keep going. But for those who are just joining us, because again, this stream will not be available for replay after, I will just say this. Um, I'm doing a bunch of research. I'm doing what I would normally do by myself, offline, not on live stream, in preparation for a live stream or an episode, or if I was working on another project as a producer or a writer, the research part of things. This is what I would normally do, and I'm just kind of taking y'all with me through the thought process and thinking out loud. Um, because I work best in groups, you know. So that's what I'm doing right now. And we are talking about again the difference between diagnosis and identity and deaf versus disabled and ableism disguised as pride. And this sparked this idea um sparked from a situation that happened on Tuesday in Boss Attorney Bree's live stream. And it's just got me to thinking. And the person that I would normally talk to about these things did not feel like uh, a safe place to do that. And so I felt like, okay, you might be on your own on this one. So we're gonna do some research um, and see if I can come to some conclusions. I'm somebody who processes out loud, and so that's what we're doing right now. Is some research, some learning. trying to change my mind. Anytime I go in thinking like I have a certain belief, I have certain thoughts, I then go through this process of trying to disprove myself, trying to prove myself wrong, trying to find something that is going to change my mind, which a lot of people probably don't understand, but it's like it's counterproductive for me to try to find something that's going to confirm the bias that I already have or confirm the perspective that I already have. If I'm trying to strengthen my perspective, if I'm trying to make sure that my perspective is valid, is fair, is whatever, then the best way to do that is to try to find counter arguments, to try to find you know things that are gonna, comments and people that are gonna disagree with me. So that's what we're doing tonight. I don't know how long we're gonna be live, because again, this will not be available for replay. Because I don't know. I just we're gonna do other live researches or late night researches, streams, but they will not be available for replay because that's just kind of weird. Okay, I often point out I often point out to deafness is not a disability for oh, I get it. I often point out so to the people who believe that deafness is not a disability, this person is saying, I often point out that it's fine if they are not disabled, but that also means no interpreters provided at no charge, no captioning, no disability tax credits or support funds, no school supports because it's not a disability. See, I'm out here trying to find things to counter my beliefs, but I'm reading things that I've been thinking. Remember the example I gave earlier where somebody I said the person in the wheelchair was like, there's the only disability is a bad attitude. And I'm like, you're literally in a wheelchair? Did you pay for that out of pocket? Do you use wheelchair ramps? Do you ever need accessibility? Do you ever have a handicap placard? Do you ever park in disability designated spaces? Because if the only disability is a bad attitude, I, what? What? So all these accessibility that you want, I don't understand why you want it because you don't have a disability. I'm not being pedantic. I'm just I don't understand how you can have it both ways because it really seems like the issue that you have is not with the, the disability itself, but with how it's viewed, with the stigma that comes along with it, with the perspective that people have. That's what it seems like. And if that's the case, it seems like you might be fighting the wrong people. Instead of being like, I'm not disabled, you could be like, you know what? You need to change the way that you see disability because I don't see this disability as a loss. I see it as a net gain. Because I've been saying that for the longest. I've been saying, yes, I have a disability. Yes, I have a chronic illness. And you know what? If a cure existed, I would not want it. And I can still say that to this day because guess what? We are finally on the verge of cures and we finally have like some genetic therapies that are happening that where you can actually get cures. And I do not want it. Like, I am not interested because the issue is not with my disability itself, it's with the stigma. You know, if I didn't have a problem, if the medication that took me about 8 months to find the right medication, right? If I didn't have a problem accessing that medication, if there was no stigma around that medication, my life would be so different. I wouldn't be stressing every 2 weeks when it's time to get a refill. You know, I wouldn't have to be worried. I probably wouldn't be in the hospital right now because one of the reasons I'm in the hospital right now is because I tried to get off of it too fast. That's a whole nother story. But anyways, like my issue is not with the disability itself, it's with the stigma, it's with all the ableism and all the other ish that goes along with it. I just don't understand. Okay. Upside Down says, I think any affliction, in quotes, that doesn't affect the public generally is considered a disability, but also a gift. You have to figure out how to maneuver the globe differently, in my opinion. Yeah, I agree with that. I very much agree with that. Yeah. I hear you, Smalls. Research is more fun in a group. It's way more fun, bro. Like, it's so much more. Yeah. All right, let's keep going. Let's keep going. Let's see, where was I? Uh, Okay, so they point out that if you don't have a disability, that's fine, but it means no interpreters, captioning, disability tax credits, support funds, no school supports because it's not a disability. There's a very long battle that was fought in countries to bring accessibility that was fought for all people with disabilities. If you are claiming you aren't disabled, but still demanding access meant specifically for those who are, that's a problem. God, I agree with this. I also disagree with those who say their whole world is deaf. Fine, but you are still more likely to be hit by a car, more likely to be assaulted, more likely to have a house fire or flood. There's only so much being surrounded by deaf people can remove. So much being surrounded by deaf people can remove that disability. I know deaf families that didn't hear smoke alarms that flooded their houses because no one hears the water, etc. A ton of them that utilize codas as interpreters as soon as they can sign, then claim it's not a disability. Come on. Oh yeah, that's a good. Now that is not something I had thought about. A ton of them that utilize codas as interpreters as soon as they can sign. Okay, let's talk for a second about this part right here. More likely to be hit by a car, more likely to be assaulted, more likely to, okay. So before I started this live, um yeah, every 2 weeks. That's how I was fighting every 2 weeks to get my prescription refilled because I was only getting 2 weeks at a time. A mess. And that I did that for 4 years. Um and I was wondering like why was my anxiety peaking every 2 weeks? And then finally, like, some people helped me do the math and put the things together. And I was like, oh, I get it was peaking when it was time to get my refill. And yeah, anyway. Okay, so here's my thoughts on this. I don't want to go into my diagnosis. I don't really want to go into detail. I will just say this. I have had a stroke slash TIA, which is like a trans ischemic cerebral event. It's like a stroke, a mini stroke, right? That has impacted a lot, including, for those who don't know, stroke, it happens in your brain. It impacted the left side of my body. It has impacted my hearing. It's not the only thing that has impacted my hearing. See, that's the thing about sickle cell. We have a lot of comorbidities. It is a very complex illness. So even with my vision, right, I have regular vision problems that any average person would have who wears glasses, right, whether you're nearsighted or farsighted. And so I got glasses at a very early age, but I noticed that didn't fix the problem. And I kept telling them I'm still having problems with my vision, but they were not understanding because I would go in for my vision test and they would be like, yeah, but this is your prescription. It's barely a prescription. Like, sure, you have a little one, but it's not there. And it kept changing. And it's like they were not understanding. And it wasn't until I got to college and I finally saw this black woman who's like an ophthalmologist. And I was just so frustrated and I was over it. And I was like describing my situation for the millionth time. And I was like, yeah, and sometimes I see like double vision and blah blah blah. And I'm this guy. And then she says, oh, and you see like blah blah blah, and then she kind of finished my sentence for me, and I was like, yeah. And she said, oh yeah, and do you see this and do you have this? And I was like, yeah. She's like, yeah, I think you need prisms. And I, excuse me, what the hell are prisms? Right? It wasn't until then that I started to realize like, oh, I have these other issues too, right? That a regular optometrist would not recognize, if especially if they're not familiar with sickle cell. And so, and I that's why I mentioned it was a black woman because she was familiar with sickle cell, right? And so but then I also discovered I had problems with my retina that also stems from having sickle cell. So my hearing issues are complex, right? My audio processing issues are complex. But here's what I would say. It has gotten worse over the years and has absolutely gotten worse since my stroke. There are times when my neighbor behind me, so I sit out like on my porch a lot. I say porch because it's not really a porch, it's just like my front door. Um, I sit out on my porch a lot. And there are times where my neighbor who is feet away, her front door is feet away from mine, will come out of her door, say hello, say whatever, and I not hear a thing. And it isn't until she comes into my field of view, which again, vision's not that great, so my peripheral vision's not great. So she comes to my field of vision that I go, "Oh, hey, how you doing?" And she's like, I've been saying, hey." Like my point is, people can sneak up on me. It don't matter how vigilant I am, and I am vigilant. Like especially if I'm out in public, I don't have headphones on like this. Like I do if I'm like on the phone because it's really pretty much the only way I can hear like a phone call, right? But like unless I'm on video chat and then I have these other like sort of stimuli to help me figure out what's being said and what's happening and what's being communicated. But when I'm out in public, no, no. Or if I do, I will have them to where my headphones are like off of my ears. They look like they're on my ears, but they're really off my ears so that I can hear as much as possible. But I know for a fact that this is true that you, you're more likely to be hit by a car, more likely to be assaulted, more likely to deal with a house fire or flood. And yeah, being surrounded by deaf people is not going to remove that disability. Like it doesn't change any of that. It's still more things that I have to worry about. Like my neighbor will tell you like she's like kind of we laugh about it all the time because she's like I was calling you, or she's constantly scaring me. Like constantly scaring me because she will like pop up on me and I will jump and she'll be like I said your name back there. Like I said your name 10 feet away. And sometimes she'll be like, Cameron, like she will say my name loud enough so that I can hear it because otherwise I'm gonna get scared. Like we laugh about it, we joke about it, but my point is that's absolutely true that, anyways. Um I says, wow, it took one woman who truly understood. Yeah. I had been dealing with that problem since first grade. And it wasn't until I was in New Orleans and I got into college. By this point, I had already seen multiple retina specialists, multiple people. I had seen optometrists every year. And I kept feeling like people thought I was just like lying and just like wanted glasses. And then I would get my glasses and I would get excited and be like, okay, new prescription. This is going to fix my problem. And be like, no, the problem is still there. And I didn't know how else to describe it to people because to me, what I was seeing was not double vision. It's called double vision technically, but it doesn't look double to me. My vision is like in pieces. I don't know how else to explain it, but like to me, double vision always seemed like you just see two of like this, like kind of like this, right? Like instead of seeing things like this, you sort of see, but that's not what I see. Instead of seeing this, I would see like this. It would be like up and over here, like completely separately. And then I would have to literally close one eye just so I could see things clearly. Right. I would close, depending on which eye I would close, it would just go away. And so very often when I don't have my glasses on, I have one eye closed because this is my bad eye, right? And which made even worse when I had the stroke. And then I can see clearly, right? So I'm constantly, and you can actually see my eyes are like different sizes now. It's just from years of me like squinting and like closing my one eye. And even these glasses are like thick as hell. I actually don't know if you can see like how thick the frames are because I have prisms, right? Like, see, yeah, it took one doctor at I think it was at Ochsner in New Orleans. And I was just there because that who I made the appointment with, and I was like, oh, sounds like a black woman. Cool, I'm in New Orleans. I might as well, get up, whatever. And I was just talking, telling her, and then she was started answering my questions. And that's when I actually got excited. I didn't fully let myself get excited, but then she was like, "Oh, I think you need prisms. Hang on one second." And matter of fact, these are the glasses. These are the glasses that I got all those years ago. They've been broken and repaired I don't know how many times because I've gone to doctors since then and they've never gotten the prescription quite right. And this is the prescription that actually is completely right. Like I wear these and I'm like, "Oh, this is how other people have been seeing their entire lives." Quite interesting. And I've had some that have gotten pretty close but never I think people just don't realize like how bad my vision is. And so they always give me like prescriptions that are like not as strong. Like I get prisms, but they're like barely prisms, and I'm like, they help a little, but not like a lot. I don't think other doctors just haven't realized like how strong my so I always go back to these. Like I would get vision insurance, go to a doctor, go through the whole process, pick out glasses, get my glasses, and then be like, nope, not quite right. And so these are these are the actual glasses that I got from that one doctor in New Orleans who finally figured out what my problem was. But yeah, I just want to touch on that's a thing. To me that's part of having a disability. It just like it happens. Um, I can't tell you how many people have walked in front of my quiet Prius unaware that I'm right behind them. They can't all be deaf, eh? You have a source for the claim that deaf people are more likely to be hit by a car than your other claims? Oh man, it's a good question. I would imagine there are studies. Yep, I knew it. I knew it was coming. I knew it was coming. So this is a deaf person who is sounds like they're questioning the validity of those claims, and these appear to be studies. Let's see. Considering that more than 90% of deaf and hard of hearing adults are 50 or older, it's not surprising that more of them are prone to falling and injuries. Further, the article is not clear what is considered an accidental injury. They also make some specious assumptions like they may be less likely to hear a car horn or someone yelling at them to duck if a baseball is headed their direction. How many people have you seen get hit by a baseball? Outside of baseball players, I've seen one. She was deaf and she freaking caught the ball. Are there any studies that take into account the ages of the participants or study deaf and hard of hearing? I like the study that found that deaf adults have better peripheral vision and faster reaction times. That I 100% believe. Um, I think I agree with this too. Hearing loss is not referring to deaf or hard of hearing, who for the most part have learned as children how to navigate the world. But if you grow up hearing and then lost it, I would damn well expect the accident rates to go up for your cohort because you're depending on something you no longer have. But it's a very hairy thing to equate hearing loss with deafness in general. I never lost my hearing. I have all the hearing I was ever born with. I don't think I understand that. I need to think I'm misunderstanding that. Hold on. I'm trying to figure out if this is like a matter of semantics or if because I don't want to say it's semantics. I think it's me not understanding this. Hearing loss is not referring. Okay, so here's where I disagree, and I'm wondering. Hearing loss is not referring to deaf or hard of hearing, even though what we read earlier said that it does include people who have lost their hearing later in life. So there's some confusion. Yeah. Is she still practicing? I don't know, but that was in New Orleans and I am in LA. I remember trying to get my prescription because again, I have to go to another one and just like get retested. And so I was trying to get my prescription and I couldn't get it. It had been too long. Again, this was back in 2000, I would say probably 2006, 2007. So we're looking at over 10 years now, 2006, 2000, probably coming up on 20 years now. Oh dear God. I've been out of college for so long. But yeah, I don't know if she's still practicing. I don't even remember her name, bro. If I did, I'd give her a freaking reward, an award. I'd shout her out or something, but I don't remember it. Um, it's a very hairy thing to equate hearing loss with deafness in general. I get that, but this also feels like a very like deaf and hard of hearing elitist thing to say that like deafness only includes those who have always been deaf, right? Which is not what that's saying, but by saying the opposite, it is what's being implied. Hmm. Anyway, this doesn't feel like a good argument to me, but I'm wondering if that's bias. I'm trying to account for bias, so let me. That's why I'm working through this in real time. Carelessly Fabulous says there is more cited in the reports themselves, including statistics on kids born deaf have 50% more hospitalizations. But yes, none of this covers the full spectrum since they don't focus on the specific question being asked here. Your last paragraph is hysterically funny. There are alarms for everything under the sun. You don't get hit by cars because you look around. Okay, let's see. Mm, hmm. I would imagine child abuse is worse in deaf children being raised by in a hearing family, especially like like foster families. Maybe I would imagine. I don't know how true that is or how accurate my speculation is. Um, oh, child abuse and deafness and overview, hearing loss, accident, and work related issues, injuries. Hearing impaired, more likely to be involved in accidents. That looks like from a law firm, though. I don't know. Just thinking she could give you a referral in LA. Yeah, you know what? I would be very surprised. Actually, I wouldn't be surprised. I was just thinking at first. I was gonna say I would be very surprised. Excuse me for that messing up the mic. I'd be very surprised if she could give me a referral. But with her being a black woman, actually, I wouldn't be surprised because often you have like career like associations like there's one for dermatologists, right? Like I'm looking for dermatologists who are familiar with skin of color or melanated skin or whatever. So that they have these organizations and associations, and they tend to do a lot of networking and they know a lot of people across the country. And so, yeah, you're actually right. She could give me a referral. I wonder if it's worth it to try to like figure out her name and like track her down. It might be worth it. Actually, I'm glad you said that because I hadn't thought of a reason to do that before, but now I'm like, oh, maybe I should do that. Um, okay, I don't know how much longer I'm gonna last sitting up, but let's see, sexual assault victims who are deaf face unique issues not encountered by the hearing. According to a recent study funded by the National Institute of Justice, researcher Jennifer Obina and colleagues at the Minneapolis Council on Crime and Justice interviewed 51 deaf citizens, 15 service providers, both deaf and hearing, and 10 police officers in their investigation of the impact of sexual assault on members of the deaf community. So this is not, I don't think this is about people whose deafness made them more susceptible or prone to assault. I think this is about like the unique experience of being deaf and having experienced assault. Um, it doesn't surprise me that there is a unique experience there, right? I had a doctor. Um, there's a program here called East West Medicine, which I actually find really fascinating, where they take some Eastern practices and mix it with Western practices, and it has actually been really really helpful. But anyways, um, I needed to get these trigger shots, and where I needed to get them, he needed to pull my underwear down, and I wear boxer briefs for those who don't know, like boxers, they're like fitted boxers or whatever, and the doctor was like not like he was being like very quick. He was moving quickly, and he just like he didn't rip my underwear down, but if the way that it felt was very very triggering for me, and I hadn't thought about that. Like again, trigger warning, assault, and medical trauma and things like that. I hadn't considered that that would be an issue for me before, and possibly before I had experienced my sexual assault in the hospital, it may not have been an issue. But now here you have this man who one has a mask on, who isn't talking me through what he's doing. He's just like, okay, let's just check and see. He's not saying a word, and he's like trying to pull down like my shorts, and the way that he's doing it, I understand like they're fitted and like um y'all would know this, but let me just say, like, I don't have a flat ass, Okay, I do have curves, and so it seems like he was like struggling with that, and I get that. But like him not communicating and him like moving real fast was like real triggering, and I was like, okay, time out. We have to have a talk. And I like stopped him right there. And I was like, I need you to understand. The only time I've ever experienced sexual assault was in a hospital, and I have also medical trauma on top of that. And you moving at the speed at which you're moving, but not talking me through what you're doing and just doing shit is not gonna work for me. It's really triggering. And you're like, he was like, oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't even think about it. Yeah. I need you to pause for a second, right? And so like prior to this, I wouldn't have thought about the ways in which like these different experiences can come together. Again, like the intersection of those experiences lead to an entirely new experience. So now I'm looking at this like, oh yeah, sexual assault and being deaf. Oh yeah, that probably is a completely different experience that I had not considered before, right? So anyways, we're gonna read this a little bit. Um, So that says right. I would definitely try that. Yeah, I'm gonna try that. I actually really appreciate that suggestion. I'm gonna actually get on that and see if I can track down. I mean, they have to have a record of like who saw me, right? Like they have to. We'll hope. We'll see. We'll see. Um. Oh, that would trigger me big time. Yeah. Like, I didn't expect it. Like for me, for the most part, I think because it was like so it was like an X-ray tech when like I had my sexual assault, and I was very much like heavily medicated, and I think this is also why I'm like I have a fear of like being like too medicated while in the hospital because I want my faculties about me at all times. And so when they're like, "Oh yeah, we could give you this and this and this, and you'll be out here in no time," I'm like, "No, like, what are you giving me? What's happening? I need to know. Like, I have to know everything." Um, and it's interesting because the things that you would think would trigger you. This is the thing about like trauma and like assault and like it doesn't always make sense because the things that you would think would trigger me, like me going to get an X-ray, I was sort of like bracing myself to be triggered. I was not triggered. I was sort of bracing myself for getting a. Again, I don't want to go into details, but like doing the thing that I had to do before when I was assaulted, like I thought was going to trigger me, and it did not. And I was very confused by that. So much so, I even started to question, like, was that assault? Like, maybe it wasn't assault. Maybe I was over, like, right, like things that I should not be questioning. And the things that I did not think would trigger me very much did. Didn't see that coming. Nobody warned me about that. It's fascinating. Um, I had tech assistant try that. She almost lost a hand. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, and I can't help but think that it was clear that I was like very much not there, right? Because it took me a second to register what was happening. And even when I did, he tried to like gaslight me and like it was just kind of a mess. But I very much believe like it was clear to him that like I wasn't all the way there because had I been all the way there, he would have lost more than a hand. He would have lost his job. Like just like I said earlier, I was on the phone for 45 minutes with the director of the emergency department because I'm somebody when I'm saying like, oh, I'm gonna file a complaint. I filed a complaint and I told them I do expect to hear back from somebody. I expect somebody to follow up with me because if they don't, I will be following up and I will follow up again and I will follow up. I will do whatever the hell I need to do to make sure somebody else doesn't experience the same thing, right? And so like that's very much me. But like when this happened, I was just like, okay, let's just pretend this didn't happen, and that obviously that didn't work. But like I can't help but feel like he took advantage of like the me not like me being heavily medicated and not all the way there because he should have lost a hand. He should have lost more than a hand that night. Yeah. Uh, and also I hate that you can relate to that. Um, okay, let's see what we got. Deaf people face specific barriers. It's important to distinguish their experiences as sexual assault victims from other. That makes sense to me. For example, when deaf people report sexual assault, they encounter stereotypes about being a sexual assault victim and being deaf. Wait, what? They encounter stereotypes about being a sexual assault victim and being deaf. I don't get it. What stereotypes? What don't I know? Okay, let's keep going. Maybe obviously, I'm hoping it's going to answer that question because I'm a little confused right now. Rape victims often have feelings of guilt and embarrassment because of the social stigma frequently attached to rape. Those feelings can be compounded due to the small and generally close knit nature of the deaf community, oh, wait, which said, which said the researchers can contribute to a hesitancy to report a sexual assault. Now that I think I know where this is going. I think it has to do with the fact that most times your perpetrator is somebody you know, and if you already have a small community, close knit community, I can imagine. I don't know if that's where this is going. Let's see. Okay, those feelings can become. Where was I? Report hesitancy to report a sexual assault. Okay, the closeness of the deaf community can comprise compromise a victim's anonymity and erode privacy. Right? Okay, didn't consider that. Yep. In addition, the researchers found many deaf victims of sexual assault perceive a lack of support within the deaf community, particularly if the person who perpetrated the crime is also deaf. Yes. Okay. Consequently, deaf victims can experience a profound sense of isolation. Got you. Got you. Okay. 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 I'm following. I'm processing. I'm still processing, but I'm following now. Okay. Okay. That makes sense to me. God, that's gotta suck, bro. So for those who don't know, a lot of assault victims, oftentimes they know their perpetrator. And in the situations that they do, there's often a hesitancy to disclose, to report, um, for fear of messing up the status quo, for messing up the relationship between, you know, multiple people, whether it's a family member or a coworker or, you know, somebody you're supposed to be cool with, or and if you already have a tight knit community where everybody knows everybody, I imagine that's how it would be for the sickle cell community. Even though I feel like I kind of got chewed out for comparing disability to deafness. Again, this is the frame of reference that I have, which is the sickle cell community. It is a small, tight knit one, right? Even though sickle cell is the most prevalent genetic disorder in the U.S., if you are an advocate, you know the other advocates in the community, right? And you kind of we all go to the same conferences and conventions, and we're here, like we all are end up in the same spaces. And I can only imagine if like, and I've never heard of a sexual assault happening in one of those spaces, which but now I'm wondering though, right? But I've never heard of it happening. But also like I can imagine the fallout if it did happen or if it has happened and it got reported. I can just imagine the fallout because we are a tight knit community, right? And I can imagine folks not wanting to see somebody in a certain light and having a hard time believing, right? Because oftentimes people who can do stuff like that, they present one thing to everybody else, to everybody who's not their victim, they present a certain way, and then to their victims, that they're the only people who get to see a certain side of them. So like I can just imagine that being hella isolating. And I'm trying to think right now, as vocal as I am, as outspoken as I am, as much as I'm like, nah, fuck this, we ride at dawn. I don't know. I'm not gonna say I don't know what I would have done. If I had experienced some type of sexual assault at the hands of somebody else in my community, I can't say for sure what I would have done because this was a motherfucking x-ray tech and I didn't say nothing. Not right away. So I can only imagine if it's like within my community. Oh, bruh. Oh, isolating wouldn't that would be an understatement. That would be an understatement, bro. I would I would I would just check out. I would just chunk the deuces, check out and be like, I'm good. Y'all got it. Y'all got it. I couldn't do it. I could not do it. Uh Upside down says, wow, the gaslighting would shut me down completely. Yeah. Yeah. It's wild because like gaslighting usually does the opposite for me. And I think it's because I kind of get like defensive, right? Because I'm already somebody who questions myself. So for somebody else to be like, nah, what you think happened is not actually what happened. And now I'm like, I'm gonna probably push back unless they were really slick about the gaslighting. Yes, got it. Your community gets smaller. Yeah, yeah. I think that's it too. And creates division within it. Yep. Yep. Must be tragic. Yeah, that's how I feel. Like I can't imagine, bro. Like it's and I think it's worse. I think it's worse. I know we don't like to compare or play the oppression Olympics or disability Olympics, but I think it would be even worse because at least with the sickle cell community, I'm not like relying on that, right? Like I do there are some people in the sickle cell community who are. I had a friend who like the community was really all she had just based on who her family was or wasn't, which was shit. They wasn't shit. Um, but I would imagine if you're deaf and your community is other people who use ASL or who can communicate with you. Like you see what I'm saying? Like that would really fuck me up because you got to give up your community. Like you, especially if your community comes back and blames you or says you're lying or just doesn't believe you, or even worse, you know what I think is worse? I think it's worse when your community says that they believe you and they continue to fuck with the other person. That happened to me, like, kinda with, like, with my sorority when I with the abuse that I dealt with, people were like, "Yeah, no, I believe you." So anyways, this sorority like, and they were, like, still fucking with the sorority, and it took me a while to realize, like, that really I felt the way about that, and it made me trust the person, the people a lot less, but, like, I think it's worse when somebody says, "I believe you," but then I'm still gonna fuck with this person that hurt you. I don't know, man. Um, Upside Down says, "First time, mine was a school doctor at 5 years." Wait, I keep trying to reread it because I feel like I'm reading it wrong, but maybe I'm not, and if I'm not, I wish I was. First time, mine was a school doctor at 5 years old. Okay, so the doctor wasn't 5. The school doctor wasn't 5 years old, which means you were 5 years old. I told no one. Um, ooh, ooh, I don't even believe in heaven and hell. Like talking about, like, I don't believe in it anymore. I didn't believe in it that much when I was a Christian. So I really don't believe in it now. But there's a special place in whatever the equivalent of hell is. You know, like some people think like there are different heavens for each religion and different. I don't know, maybe that's true, but there's a place. There is a special place for adults who hurt children, who violate children. There is a s- really there is. Mm, because what do you mean a 5 year? What do you mean 5 years? What do you mean an adult doctor who worked at a school? Okay, I told no one. Yeah, I would have. Yeah, that yeah, that sounds about right. Cause what the fuck? Oh dear. Okay. Hella mad. I'm mad for you, and I hate that you had to deal with that. That's bullshit. All right, I'm gonna keep going. The closeness of the deaf community can comprise a victim's anonymity, compromise a victim's anonymity, and erode privacy. It would help if I stopped trying to pretend like I have these vision impairments. I keep taking these glasses off to clean them, and then like it's the thing. They're scratched up by now, even with the anti-scratch coating. They're so old. In addition, the researchers found many deaf victims of sexual assault perceive a lack of support within the deaf community, particularly if the person who perpetrated the crime is also deaf. Consequently, deaf victims can experience a profound sense of isolation. The researchers found that another impediment to deaf victims seeking help is a lack of awareness about deafness and deaf culture among hearing people. Yeah, I can see that. Many view deafness from a medical perspective. Okay. Focusing on hearing deficits rather than viewing deaf people as members of a linguistic and cultural community. Now, this is the best way that I've seen this put yet. There is not a trace of ableism in this. This, well said, very beautiful. That many view deafness from a medical perspective, focusing on hearing deficits rather than viewing deaf people as members of a linguistic and cultural community. But kudos, kudos. In fact, researchers found that many of the deaf women interviewed do not view themselves as disabled, well, but rather as having a culture and way of communicating not recognized by the dominant hearing culture. Okay, well, and the ableism jumped back in, but we were doing good for a while before then, you know. And suddenly they're not disabled. Suddenly words don't mean the things that they mean. Okay, recognize deaf culture. Part of being in the deaf community is deaf culture. Abina says we can't always make assumptions about how a particular culture experiences violence. Ooh, very true. this is where I would I'm trying to figure out how to say this, like really defer to certain indigenous cultures because certain indigenous cultures are not a monolith. I want to start by saying that because a lot of times people will say indigenous peoples, and I'd be like, which ones? All of them? Are we like, are we all of them? Just all the indigenous? Are we just gonna lump them all together? So First Nations as well as the ones and then the ones are we talking about when we say indigenous, do we mean in Australia too? Or do we just mean up north? Like when we say so anyways, I don't want to get too far deep into the weeds, but here's what I will say. There are certain indigenous cultures who we could really learn a lot from when it comes to, this idea that there are, that particular cultures experience violence differently, right? Like you could have the same sort of like violent act experienced by members of different cultures, and their cultural background be really really impactful in ways that a lot of a lot of Western people just can't even fathom and therefore cannot hold space for. And I don't know if I'm making a lot of sense because it's in my head. I haven't figured it all out. Um, there's so much to be learned from so many of the indigenous. I mean, I imagine all of the indigenous cultures, but I haven't studied all of the indigenous cultures. I only know about the ones closest to me, and here on Turtle Island, I'm trying to do a lot better about learning um, about indigenous cultures of New Zealand and Australia. I follow a couple of Maori creators, and um, I've been able to tap into and learn about their cultures through music. You know, they got a really dope metal scene over there. Anyways, I'm gonna get off track, but yeah, I was just thinking about that based on that. Based on We can't always make assumptions about how a particular culture experiences violence. Even though the experience and many of the reactions are similar, there are cultural differences that service providers and law enforcement must pay attention to. Making decisions about who to tell or even when to tell is all filtered through a cultural lens. Yes. Couldn't have said that better myself. Many hearing people do not know how to initiate a conversation with a deaf person, which can make encounters awkward and frustrating and can contribute to a hesitancy among deaf sexual assault victims to reach out for help. Also, interpretations between American Sign Language and English are inherently imperfect. Finally, the researchers point out that victims may have different communication styles. Some lip read and write, others are more comfortable with ASL, still others may have minimal language skills, which requires communication to be more visual or tactile. Many deaf victims may be reluctant to reach out to agencies that serve sexual assault victims because most of the providers are hearing and do not have systems for effectively communicating with deaf people. For example, deaf sexual assault victims cannot count on service agencies having access to a TTY teletypewriter, much less a staff member who knows how to operate it. Even if a social service or law enforcement agency has an interpreter, deaf victims, like hearing victims, may be reluctant to divulge intimate details to yet another stranger. I was hoping that they were going to get there because one thing that I have discovered is that people do not. Okay, there's something that I'm going to say, and I'm going to use AAVE for that sort of comparison in a second. But the first thing that I thought about, well, one of the first things I thought about as I started to read this, and we were talking about, awkward encounters and the TTY, and the first thing I thought about was, fuck, that means they got to tell yet another person. And so often, sexual assault victims have to tell their story multiple times, right? You got to go to this person, then you got to go to this agency, then you got to go through this step in the process, then you got to go to this step, then you got to tell the DA, then you got to tell the attorney, and all that way, they need an interpreter. And do you think that they're going to give them a single interpreter to stick with them through the entire process? Chances are, hell no. So now, not only are they telling the police or the DA or the lawyer or the whoever, but they're really telling it through an interpreter who may or may not have any ties or connection to deaf culture, right? Like, bitch, I wouldn't be saying shit either. I wouldn't be reporting shit. I'm not even gonna hold you. Like, I really want to be like, be strong because you got to report them. And I really want to be that person. but just knowing me better than I have known myself in a long time, like having experienced medical trauma and sexual and the things that I know that I'm comfortable talking about and I'm not comfortable talking about, I wouldn't be saying shit. I'll probably go ahead and report it just to get it on report, and then they'd be like, "Okay, now can you tell it to this person?" I'm like, no, I'm out. No, I'm good. I done told you. Figure it out from there. No, I just know me, and I want to be that person, but I also know I'm not that person. I'm really private. I don't like talking about my personal stuff. I don't like crying in front of people. Apparently, I also don't like seeing myself cry. So, but I'm also like sensitive as hell. So, I mean, I'm gonna report it. I'm gonna make a police report. But if you think I'm gonna sit down and tell my story 52 times, you thought wrong. Because I'm gonna tell you what I'm not gonna do. That upside down says, I agree, Smalls. Um, thanks. We'll tell you the story sometime. We'll both start raging and change the subject. Yeah, probably. That's probably gonna happen. Um, yep. I want to go home. Where is home? Where's home? That's how I be feeling. I be like, I want to go home, but my home is about 90 minutes away. So I don't know. When I say home, I just mean to my apartment. I want to get out this bitch. Um, are you on Discord? Let me know if you're on Discord. Um, okay. Let's see. Some deaf victims of sexual assault also believe they cannot rely on interpreters to accurately represent their words and experiences. Service agencies that do not have qualified interpreters on site often use the victim's family or friends to assist in interviews, which can further inhibit a sexual assault victim's candor. Oh, child. Oh, man. No, no, no. Okay. So here's my thought. Um, wow. Black Sign Language is a thing, and it's a thing thanks to racism and Jim Crow and um, black people having to do what they need to do, right? It was like, oh, you don't want to let us into schools? Okay, guess we gotta have our own. Well, naturally, the languages are gonna. So, Black Sign Language is a thing, and I have wanted to be an interpreter for a long time, since high school, actually, and for a number of reasons that, like, sort of dream desire kind of went away when I started to experience hearing loss, hearing impairment. That I don't know if hearing loss is the right word, but hearing impairments that kind of went away. But then I sort of found a renewed vigor when I discovered um, that there was still to this day a demand for interpreters of Black ASL, and that my hearing didn't have to be perfect to do it, right? So I was like, oh well, shit, maybe I should still try or whatever. Anyways, the point that I'm making is I've done like a lot of research on Black ASL, and I know how it is as a Black person who has decided I'm not code switching anymore. I'm gonna speak how I speak, and it is what it is. I'm not code switching unless I want to, um, which has left me trying to remember how to like interpret some things for like white people, right? Like even like talking to Kimmy, right? I'll be like, I'll say something, I'll be like, ah, wait, hang on, I only know how to say it in AV. Give me 1 second, let me figure out how to say it in this other thing. Even that be frustrating. Even that's like a, oh, how do I say this in the and that's a fleeting feeling. And I'm not talking about something heavy like sexual assault. Like we're just having a key and I'm trying to figure out, oh, how do I say this thing that I usually say in AAVE? How do I say it in English now? Like how do I say it in Queen's English? I'm bringing that up not really to compare it to like deaf people and like sexual assault. I'm bringing it up because I'm like, well, damn, if I'm just a little bit frustrated or annoyed by that, I can only imagine how it is when you're trying to explain something like sexual fucking assault to a hearing person and hearing interpreter, because interpreter doesn't mean ally. Interpreter doesn't mean that they have experience with the deaf community, with deaf culture. I took a whole ASL 101 class and got minuscule culture. It wasn't until I got to ASL 102 and I had a deaf teacher that I really got a whole bunch more about deaf culture. So there's no guarantee. Oh man, it wouldn't be me. Couldn't be me. And then you want me to use my family or friends to interpret my sexual assault experience to you? How about no? How about we not gonna do that? How about that's not gonna happen? How about hard pass? I live on the I don't know what WC is. Oh, West Coast? No. West Coast? Maybe West Coast, because you are still up. I don't know. Not done Discord because it was so sketchy, but it supposedly got better. We'll open an account later today or tomorrow. We'll look for you. Yeah, I'm hella swanky on there. Well, I'm hella swanky everywhere. Also, oh, that hurt. Okay. Um, Discord is a lot, but I love Discord. It's like a one-stop shop for like everything, bro. Oh, I just really fucked up. Oh god, 1 second, y'all. I think that's better. Okay. I live on the West Coast. Okay. I think WC is West Coast. I think. Um. Okay. Police response. That's not what we were looking at. Okay. So not quite what we were looking for, but very informative nonetheless. Oh, editor's note. Within the deaf population in this country, there is a community that strongly identifies itself from a cultural as opposed to a medical perspective. This community uses a capital D when referring to the deaf community. Nevertheless, in an effort to minimize any sense of exclusion among deaf citizens who do not identify as part of the deaf community, this article uses deaf to embrace all deaf people. That is essentially the sentiment. Remember when I said earlier that I was talking to a deaf advocate who was explaining why they don't use, I can't remember the pronouns for sure, so I'm saying they, um, why they don't use capital D. That was the sentiment. Those are not their words, but that was the sentiment. Essentially, that it was that the capital D could be very elitist, and that um, using the lowercase d was more inclusive because it included everybody, like those who identify from just the medical perspective, but also from a cultural perspective, but also from, like, and so I got that. So I just wanted to say I was having a hard time earlier verbalizing their thoughts about the matter, but that was essentially that. Um, Minimize any sense of exclusion. Because I will say, I very much feel that sense of exclusion, right? Like when I'm told to only use deaf and hard of hearing and not say impairment, even though that's how I identify myself. And I know that other people with hearing impairment, that's how they identify. So it just kind of left me feeling like, well, definitely not part of the deaf and hard of hearing community, which is fine because I don't actually identify as such. But I do know that there are some people who do sort of feel like they're part of that community but don't feel included because of how they identify. And again, a lot of these conversations happened on Twitter, so I imagine if you just search my Twitter and some of these keywords, you probably could see those conversations. But I very much have felt like excluded, and I think that like that what was happening in the chat on Tuesday was just prime example. Like I couldn't have set it up better myself to as an example of like why I felt excluded. Like the moment that I say, "Well, this is my experience," and they're like, "That's deaf," and I'm like, "But I don't identify as deaf," and like I don't think you get to tell me how to identify, and it feels like very exclusionary for you to try to do that. But anyways, all right, let's see what else we got. Damn, this one doesn't have any paragraph breaks. This one might be tough for me to get through. Hold on. Yeah, that kind of all blends together. That's not gonna work. Is there an abstract? I thought maybe there would at least be an abstract. Okay, one for us. So I'm gonna put a controversial yet brave statement in this. Uh, There's somebody at my door. Who's at my door? There's been a package outside my door for like 2 days because I was expecting to be home, and it's just sitting there. At least I have a Ring camera and I can see it. I was gonna ask my neighbor to grab it, but she's seen it and hasn't offered, and knows that I'm probably in the hospital and hasn't offered, so I'm not gonna ask. I will just keep an eye on it via the camera. Yeah, West Coast. Glad to hear that about Discord. Got you, Helsinki. You know your whole. uh, yeah, it's funny because it started off with me figuring out a new stage name. I figured out a stage name, which was Swank. Wait, let me see if I can type it. Let me see if I can type it. It was Swank E Smalls, right? So it wasn't Swanky originally. But then when I did Swanky Smalls, which is meant to sound like Swanky, right? Um, and I was like, oh well, what handle do I want? And I was like, well, I kind of want to use Swanky because that was the license plate that my mom had growing up. My mom had this red Volvo, and the back said Swanky, and the license plate frame said, "I'd rather be shopping at Nordstrom." And that was like my mom's favorite store. I always heard like I was a Nordy baby, and that was my mom's favorite store. And she worked there for a time. She really wanted to be a buyer for Nordstrom's at one point, and so it just really like kind of reminds me of my childhood, like the swanky thing or whatever. And so I was like, oh, I kind of want to use that. But like obviously swanky was just taken. And so I was like, oh, well, I could use like hella. And that also sort of like calls back to the Bay Area, right? Like as a Bay Area slang term. So I was like, oh, I could do hella. And then I found out it was available on all platforms. And I was like, there it is, hella swanky. So that's been my thing ever since. Um, how are you feeling? Distract. Well, so here's the thing. This is a good distraction from the pain. And it wasn't until like you asked me how I was feeling and then I had to think about it and I paused and I was like, oh, well, now I'm like keenly like more aware of my pain now. But um distraction is still really good. And it really sucks because um when we're young, well, a lot of us, like if you have a good sickle cell doctor, then when you're young, they teach you how to manage your pain outside of medication. And they teach you all these different pain management tricks, from heating pads to hot baths, hot showers to my make a wish was I wished for a hot tub, and I got it for my make a wish from the Make a Wish Foundation. And that was because my pediatric doctor recommended it, because I used to do this. I used to do the hot water therapy at the hospital, and it was the thing that helped me the most. I would be in the hospital and I would ask to go every day. I was like, "Can I go? I just want to go to the hot water. I just want to go to the hot." Like I was a kid, just want to go to the hot water. So when it came time for my make a wish, he jokingly was like, "You should ask him for a hot tub, right?" And like I think he just thought like, "Oh, I'm a kid. There's no way I'm gonna ask for that. I'm gonna ask for like a trip to Disneyland or like a whatever." No, that was genius to me. And I said, "Oh, I would like a hot tub at my house. Thank you." And I got a hot tub at the house. And I used it a lot as a kid, for fun and for like therapeutic stuff. Wish I had it now. That's the only downside of like having an apartment. But anyways, I said all that to say distraction is a really good tool for pain management, but it is one that we have to be really mindful of using in the hospital, especially in the emergency room, because just like I had a doctor say yesterday, well, you look pretty comfortable right now. I was in excruciating pain. And the fact that he pointed and looked down, he was like, well, you look pretty comfortable right now. I'm sitting in a fucking recliner in the hallway of a hospital. My pain is like 7-8 under AC, and you think I look comfortable. I'm trying to zen out and not think about this shit. Who gives a damn how I look? Sir, if you don't get out of my face and treat my pain, like the number of times we've been told, oh, well, you're reading your book, you must be fine. Oh, well, you're asleep, so your pain must be gone. Oh, well, you're playing your video game, so you must be fine. You're on your tablet, so these are distraction tools. These are things they teach us to use to help manage our pain. But if they see us using them, then we must be fine. And my mom didn't fully believe this until she went with me to the ER. She was sitting with me, and They had given me my pain meds. They had also given me Benadryl. I don't usually take Benadryl because I don't usually need it. But for a lot of patients, the medicine makes you itch, so you get Benadryl with it. Well, Benadryl makes you sleepy, so I drifted off to sleep a little bit. She came back in and was like, "Okay, we're gonna discharge you." And my mom was so confused because I had only had one dose. They didn't ask how well it worked, and so my mom was like, "Discharge? What's happening?" And she said, "Oh, well, you're asleep." And I said, and me and my mom were like, "Yeah, what? I don't get it. What's happening?" And she's like, "Oh, well, you're asleep, so the pain must be better if you were able to go to sleep." And my mom was just like dumbfounded. My mom was like, "What? How did you get the?" And it was like these were all things that I had told her like had happened to me, and she was like, "I believed you. I just what?" Yeah, they say some of the most ridiculous stuff. Love your mom. Yeah, my mom's hilarious. And it's funny because Swanky was a nickname that she was given. That was not like a nickname that was given to her. It's just because she was always into fashion and she goofily decided to put her dreams on hold to have me. Not something I would have done. Uh, and so then she worked like a regular like, government job, but was still like very like swanky, like going into work. I mean, I did that too. I worked for UPS and wore a tie and like to work every day because have you seen the UPS uniforms? My God, they're ugly. But supervisors, you can wear whatever you want. And I was like, well, I'm taking advantage of that because what the hell? So I get going to work, feeling good, but apparently that gave her the nickname Swanky. So that's how it ended up on her license plate. And then I stole the nickname from her. Yeah, I don't get it. I didn't get this. I was like, and I actually said something to him about it. Actually, I wonder if I have it recorded. I would have to find it. But I said something to him about it. I was like, do you work with a lot of sickle cell patients? And he was like, I mean, yeah, I mean, kind of. And he said, I said, that statement was a bit of a red flag for me. You know, you telling me how I must be feeling based on how I look is a red flag. I was like, you either haven't worked with too many sickle cell patients or nobody's told you about yourself because that was a red flag. And you now seem like an unsafe medical professional to me because I don't know what the hell, how I look. I was like, after you've experienced pain for like over 30 years, my 8 at level pain is not gonna look like the person who never experiences pain on a daily basis. And this goes for just about anybody with chronic pain. If you deal with chronic pain, when you get to an 8, your 8 is not gonna look like an 8, the 8 of somebody who never experiences pain. It's just not. I'm not gonna be in the ER like hollering and screaming and crying because it makes the pain worse. Right? Like, even like me talking right now, like I'm using muscles in my body, so it is actively making my back pain worse, but also I'm distracted, so it's also helping my back pain. So it's kind of canceling each other out, right? But like when you're crying, your body is more tense, your body is more anxious, it's more stressed out. You have a physiological response to crying. And it makes the pain worse. You're not breathing properly, so you're getting less oxygen. Like these are all scientific things when I decided, I won't say decided, but when I really worked on like, and I worked on like not crying when I'm in pain because I was noticing that it was making it worse. And it wasn't until years later that I learned that there was actually science behind what I was feeling that like really confirmed and validated. Like when I cry, I feel worse. So no, I'm not gonna be in your face cry. I'm sorry, like, and I remember my mom saying like, okay, until we get you to a room, I need you to ham it up or we're going to be in the waiting room forever. So you need to figure out what you need to do. You're going to have to cry a little bit. You're going to have to whatever. You're going to have to ham it up. And I hated it because I had felt like I had to put all this work into showing that I was in pain. When really, for me, the quieter I am, the more still I am, that's when my pain is bad. Like if I stop talking, it's bad. You're not a vet. Yeah, yeah. People, doctors are wild. Doctors are wild. Okay, let's see. Oh, here's something. Well, what is autism? I think I know what it is. Hold on. Let's see. We're gonna get out of here in a second. It's been 2 hours. I think you know what? Here's what I'm gonna do. But I got vet. I figured vet meant veterinarian. I did get that. Um, that's why I giggled. Um, also, it's really strange. I was about to show y'all this app, but I don't want to, all kind of personal detail as well as like the hospital I'm in. So I'm not gonna do that. But like, this is really cool because it has all the information about my hospital stay here. I wonder if I can show this part without. Let me see. Here, can I do that? Let's see. All right. So like on the screen, I don't know if you guys can see it, but it has like your hospital stay, you're here for this, all the medications I get, the timeline, like my whole care team is on here. Like it has all these details that I normally have to keep track of myself. Um, I'm not getting it out because I was gonna say I have a notebook here that has like all my blank templates in it because I usually keep track of everything. I keep track of like the medications I take, how much I'm taking, how much I'm being given. Because again, I've been overdosed on accident by doctors. I've been given the wrong medication. Like I've had nurses and doctors lie. I have to keep track of everything. And so this is the first time where I've been able to go to the hospital, like be in the hospital and not also have to like track everything that's happening and just focus on being able to recover. Ciao. Yeah, exactly. Your focus goes to your pain. Yeah, exactly. That's why distraction helps so much, right? Because it's like you could think about something else, but also when you're like focusing on your pain, you can focus on like other techniques, whether it's like breathing techniques or like um distracting yourself with like your mind, like taking your mind somewhere else, almost like disassociating. But I don't think it's disassociating. I don't think it's considered disassociating. But for me, it's like I will just force my mind to go somewhere else, right? Like because when I'm in the ER, I can't use my tablet or something else because then they'll be like, "Oh, well, you must be fine. You're good." No, so then I have to use my like my brain for it. Oh, I was trying to decide when so I got it at 2200. Okay, I got it at 2200. So 23 0 1. Okay, so about 40 minutes. A plus for technology. Hell yeah, A plus for technology. All right, so we're gonna try to be out of here in 30 minutes or less. Let's see what we can come up with. So far, I have tried to. What should I type in to counter? Maybe I'll just type in like not ableism. Let's see. I tried ableism, that didn't work. Hold on. Okay, unfortunately, discrimination is still a concept very present in our daily lives. It exists in many ways, oppressing and offending different groups, such as women, black people, members of the LGBTQIAPN+. Too many letters. Too many letters. Too many letters. I'm saying this as a member of the Alphabet and Mafia. Too many letters. Absolutely not. I'm not even 100% sure what all these are. Lesbian, gay, bi, trans, queer, intersex, asexual. I know it's not pan, is it? I hope not. As somebody who identifies as pan, I hope the P is not for pan. Please let it be for. We don't need, as a representative of the pan community, we don't need an extra letter in the acronym. The plus is fine, or the Q. We don't need an extra. And what is the N for? I'm gonna tell you what I was about to say. I was about to say nigga, but I guess I did tell you what I was about to say. But that's too much. That's too much. I don't know what all these are for, but that's too. See, now I need to know. What is this? Oh, I just realized y'all can't even see what I'm doing. I'm still on the let's see. This whole time y'all haven't been able to see. tab that I've been reading from. Let's see. Is this the one? I think this is the one. This is the one that has this long ass acronym for why. For why. EIEIO. Exactly. That's how the shit reads. That's exactly how it reads. LGBTQIA. Wait. LGBTQIAPN plus. LGBTQIAPN plus. IAPN plus. I'm okay with the I being there, honestly. Maybe even the A. Maybe. Because, ace, arrow, like I get it. And I feel like I'm okay with the I because it is considered a sexual minority slash marginalized uh community, right? And they might not consider themselves queer or any of the other letters. So I do get the I being there. Most arrow or ace people consider themselves queer though. P N I have questions. I have questions. I have questions. Like what, why? 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 What are we doing? Oh, here it is. I think this is going to tell us. Oh God, I was right. Oh my God. Okay. No. 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 Okay, it stands for lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, intersex, aromantic slash asexual, polyamorous slash pansexual, and non-binary. As the resident polyamorous pansexual, no. 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 There's so many versions and variations. I didn't realize this. Oh my God. I didn't realize this. And kink? No. Okay. We're tapping out. No, we're not doing this. That's ridiculous. And kink. Okay. No. No, that was just ridiculous. All right. So here's what I want to know. So autism. Okay. Let's see. It's about 20 minutes. No, you were right. Non-binary. You were right. You were absolutely right. But that's too much. That's too much. It's too much. It's not necessary. It's too much. You know what? I want to see some videos on it. We read a lot of articles. Let me see if I can find something on YouTube. Um, okay, here's one by Rogan Shannon. Are deaf people disabled?
I start nursing school in September, and before I sent off my application, I ran it through Grammarly. I graduated with my bachelor's and master's degree before AI really took off, so I'm really excited to use this because it has a
Hello, I'm Rogan, and welcome. Today I want to talk about deaf people and their relationship with the term disabled, along with where I stand on this subject. I'm making this video in part because of a comment on my previous video that was somewhat rude. Oh, rude to another commenter that did absolutely nothing wrong. You could say that this is a very controversial topic in the deaf community. So I just want to again emphasize that this is my view on this. Makes sense. This does not mean everybody else in the deaf community. Oh, I missed that. Hold on. This does not mean everybody else in the deaf community thinks the same way I do. Got it. Why don't deaf people consider themselves disabled? Deafness is not viewed as a loss, but rather a gain. Okay. There's a whole community, culture, and language with an identity built in. People take pride in being deaf and have no desire to change it. The only issue with wider society is communication barriers, not the hearing ability. Remember this, I will come back to it. Why are deaf people disabled? This is obvious to most people. We can't hear, therefore we are disabled. Deaf people argue against this definition because they say that we're healthy. We function just fine. It's that people don't know sign. Your internalized ableism is showing a little bit there. Anyway, while it's true that we're able-bodied, we literally cannot learn to hear. If the communication barrier was the only thing, then wouldn't people from other countries that moved here be considered disabled to start with if they don't know English? Oh, wait a minute. Now that I didn't see that coming. Hold the hell up. I didn't see that one coming. Wait, go back, go back, go back, go back, go back, go back. How do I feel about it? I just want to make sure this isn't one of those goofy ass like straw man arguments or like, hold on, hold on, hold on. While it's true that we're able bodied, we literally cannot learn to hear. If the communication barrier was the only thing, then wouldn't people from other countries that moved here be considered disabled to start with if they don't know English? They didn't know English. They're not. And over time, they can learn English if they choose to. Oh, right, right, right. So there has to be something else. Ah, yes. Being, I didn't expect that. Uh, I didn't expect that level of like, there has to be something else. 'Cause I thought he was being sincere when he was like, there has to be something else. And then he was like, ah, yes, being deaf. Sorry. Fine. I didn't expect the sass. I didn't expect the sass. Um, go back, see what I missed. There has to be something else. Ah, yes, being deaf. It's correct that if everyone knew sign and everything had captions, being deaf wouldn't be an issue at all, but that's not the case. Therefore, we are disabled by our circumstances and environment. What's my personal view on this? Let's go back to the rude commenter I mentioned. I can't see the original comment because the poster deleted it, but it said something about the disabled community and by implication was including deaf people in it. The rude commenter basically was very snippy and said that they were in the wrong for saying deaf people are included in the disabled community. Well, been there. I was going to reply and shut that down, but alas, I guess so. It's not if it's not clear by now. I consider deaf people to be disabled. Yes, I will say I'm a deaf person first. That's because it's more accurately reflects my own personal experience, my needs, and immediately communicates to you what I might need in way of accommodations. Speaking of accommodations, it infuriates me to no end. Oh, when I see these very same people insisting that deaf people aren't disabled, whip out the ADA whenever their needs aren't being met. The Americans with Disabilities Act literally has disability in the name and covers a wide range of accessibility needs, including interpreters. So if we truly aren't disabled, then we shouldn't be covered under the ADA, no? Oh, what's that? How? Oh shit. Um, the sass, man, the sass. This is getting to me. Oh, what's that? So if we truly are okay, let me go back because I messed up. Oh god, we shouldn't be covered under 88. No. Um. Oh, what's that? We need those protections. Well, gosh darn it, guess we're disabled then. Seriously, deaf people have a lot of parallel goals with the wider disability community. We all want access to things that will make our lives easier, make it possible for us to comfortably participate in society, and not just be pushed to the side and forgotten about. Amen. I also want to add by saying that deaf people aren't disabled because we have a culture and language. Oh, that's rude. You're excluding, right? Sign became deaf later and left. Right, right, right. That's what I just said. Oh, sorry. I'm supposed to be reading this out loud for anybody who is listening only. My apologies. Hold on. Let me go back. Let me go back. My apologies. Um, in all seriousness, deaf people have a lot of parallel goals with the disability community. We all want access to things that will make our lives easier, make it possible for us to comfortably participate in society, and not just be pushed to the side and forgotten about. I also want to add by saying that deaf people aren't disabled because we have a culture and language. Oh, that's so ableist right there. Um, you're excluding all those who don't know sign, became deaf later in life, and so many more on the wide spectrum of deafness. One last thing, and it's a very minor thing that I'm sure most people overlooked. For a while now, anytime I say deaf, whether that's in my captions, text messages, posts, and so on, I think I know what he's going to say. I don't use the big D anymore. Yep. I did this. I did in this video to be clear that I was talking about culturally and signing deaf people, but otherwise it's been lowercase d. In my view, because we are disabled too, and I want to include everyone who doesn't fit in that small cultural linguistic box. I use the lowercase when I'm speaking about the wider community. Disability rights are deaf rights too. Don't be an asshole. Leave your thoughts in the comments and keep it civil. Well, first of all, mission fucking failed. I only got about 15 more minutes. And I was trying to find some counters to my point. Oh, religion in the deaf community. Oh, this might be perfect for Black and Sick. Let's see, how long is this video? Save. Um, okay. I'm just kind of trying to see what the comments are hitting for. Let's see. The hearing take pride in knowing how to sign. Um, yes, they would 2 times over. Actually, 3 times over since sign is different. True, true. But the butt heads. Ah, okay. I'm hearing a disabled, and the deaf, not disabled mantra has always made me uncomfortable. I've seen deaf people say that they reject the term disabled because it is tied to a history of judgment and discrimination. While it's true that society does discriminate against disabled people, attempting to cast off the label while others cannot do so feels like respectability politics and throwing other disabled people under the bus, even if most deaf people. Oh, I didn't think about that. Okay, well, that's a lot. Hold on. Damn it. These are absolutely the wrong frames for my prescription because I have protruding eyes, which means my eyelashes hit the damn glasses all the time. My lenses, where I have to clean them so damn much. Where was I? Um, throwing other disabled people under the bus, even if most deaf people probably don't think that is what they're doing. It also feels disingenuous when, as mentioned in the video, deaf people require accommodations, with the need for accommodations being a central part of what disability means. I think this kind of sums up a little bit how I feel personally. I felt bitter about it for a while, but after taking this, I didn't really ever feel bitter about it. I don't think. I was sort of annoyed and just I was like annoyed and like chalked it up to like, well, I don't get it, but you're allowed to identify however you want, so I don't need to get it. Okay, bye. That's kind of how I chalked it up to that for the longest. But now that it's sort of been weaponized against me, I would say, including like what happened Tuesday, and then seeing someone else in particular's response to that or lack thereof, um, really made me think a bit more and want to dive deep and make sure that I understood like how I felt and what I think about the subject and blah blah blah. You can be covered by SS disability insurance, and the laws just changed, making it first come first serve as far as severity is concerned. Interesting. Agreed. It rubs me the wrong way when deaf people become combative about not being referred to as disabled, as if they think other disabled people are beneath us. The disabled community is full of amazing people. Why would I want to distance myself from that? I'm hearing, but I'm disabled, full time wheelchair user. And I recently had a conversation with a deaf person on this who also views deafness as a disability. And she agreed with what I had said, which is that, especially when deaf people, mother sucker. What the hell did I just do? Um, I just lost the. Okay, that's not helpful. I just lost the plot. Let me see if I can read it here. The disabled community is full of amazing people. Why would I want to distance myself? Okay, I gotta find the Here we go. I'm hearing, but I'm disabled, full time wheelchair user, and I recently had a conversation with a deaf person on this. With a deaf person on this who also views deafness as a. I'm sorry, I can't zoom in, and I am having a hell of a time trying to read this. Who also views deafness as a disability. And she agreed with what I had said, which is that especially when deaf people get very defensive and shut down the possibility of deafness being viewed as a disability, that it's ableism and internalized ableism. Because their argument is there's nothing wrong with being deaf, there's nothing to fix. And that, oh God, I knew that was coming. Wall of text with no breaks. Okay. And that, let's try this. And that society is the issue. That's the same for disabled people too. Why do you think me being disabled is a problem and needs fixing? That's incredibly hurtful and ableist. If we had ramps and lifts, etc., we wouldn't face barriers in the same way you wouldn't if everyone knew sign and captions were available. We feel the same way about our disabilities as you do about being deaf. Don't compare deafness and disability though. Um, and to argue that disability is something you'd hate to be associated with because of your ableist views is hurtful. I have no problem with deaf people who choose not to identify as disabled, but if their reasoning is pure ableism, then it becomes a problem. I always feel about using you in comments when addressing someone else. Obviously, I wasn't talking about you directly. I always feel, oh, I see. Yeah, so, okay, well, I went to the comments hoping there was going to be somebody who's like, you're wrong, and here's why. But it's mostly people agreeing. So, once again, not helping my journey to figure out or to counteract this narrative. Uh, Deaf blind doctor. I dig it. Um, The part about deaf gain is a bit confusing to me as a hearing person with a mostly tangential familiarity with the deaf community. What does a late deafened person gain from it? What do deaf people gain that codas or fluent but non-native signers do? What do native signers who are born deaf gain from it in a society where signing is ubiquitous among both deaf and hearing people, like Martha's Vineyard or A Said? I'd say there is one thing. Oh God, I knew it! A fucking wall of text. I'd say there is one thing deaf people gain from their condition, which is the enhanced visual processing abilities. But on the other hand, where is it? On the other hand, the inability to hear things is objectively okay. That's gonna take. I can't do that. I can't. I apologize, y'all. If y'all want to read this, I can put this in the comments. I cannot read that paragraph. I was trying, but it's quite literally. I don't know if you can see it. It's quite literally making my eyes water from the strain of trying to read it. Like it physically hurts. Um, I think we're gonna close out with this video. Just because I'm
Are you having trouble?
with this being a channel called Black and Sick, I'm very curious as to what's gonna be said here. Uh, same. This is a video from Rogan Shannon's channel, which I will link both of the videos that we watch. Um, in the channel. Hold on, I'm gonna let this ad play because hopefully Rogan gets some commission. I don't have anything to wipe my eyes anywhere near me, and I can't get up right now. So, oh God. Oh, let's try this. Oh God, it's gotta keep watering. It's gonna suck. Okay. Let's see these comments. I can read it. Don't strain. I feel you. Okay. Cool. I never felt disabled till the government decided I was. I'm epileptic. Been controlled for years. Whatever they say. Yeah, that makes sense. Are you epileptic? No. Okay. So you should be good to like, unless you have like really severe epilepsy, you should be good to drive. No. Or like, what have they tried to put any like restrictions on you or whatever? Oh, no, we don't do BetterHelp ads. We will be skipping that one, sorry. Actually, we should let it play so that they have to pay for it and that the channel gets the coin. Um, I don't know why I muted it because I actually don't know. His last video didn't have any sound, so I'm saying he, but I don't actually know Rogan's pronouns. And they don't say. It's from 2019. I don't see any pronouns listed, so I don't want to assume. Okay. All right, so this is the last video that we're gonna do, and then I'm gonna get out of here. It's gonna be time for my med soon, but also I'm getting sleepy and I'm thirsty and I'm like exhausted, and I can definitely tell. I don't know how I thought I was gonna feel. Um, Usually I'm somebody like I could stream for like 3 hours. I might like get a little restless and like have to get up and but um, I started being like really exhausted like 20 minutes ago, and I was like, oh, I can probably do 40 minutes, another 30 minutes. No, we about to finish this video and call it a day or night. I don't know. And it's not because of the time of day it is, because I'm a night owl. This is prime time for me. This is another reason I thought late night research. Who knows how long we'll go? We might go for several hours, do a live like all night research stream. No, I'm going to sleep. I don't know if I'll be able to stay asleep because sometimes you stay asleep, then the meds wear off, then you wake up because of the pain, and you're like, "Help, save me!" I don't know. We'll see. But I know I'm going to sleep because I'm exhausted and I'm sleepy, and I'm ready to go to sleep. But I really want to see what this video is about. Um, you need to sleep. So yeah, I do. I do need to sleep. Um, Usually, like I don't sleep a lot when I'm having like a flare up or I'm in crisis or whatever, just so you know, we call it a sickle cell crisis. That's what it's called. It's called either a vaso-occlusive crisis or a sickle cell crisis. So even when I was like showing my chart, it says you're in the hospital for a sickle cell pain crisis. It's called a pain crisis. But when I say that, people just hear the word crisis and they're like, what? And they like kind of panic. So I will usually say flare up. But when I'm saying flare up, I mean a sickle cell pain crisis. We don't actually call them flare ups. I call it that because other people don't know the language and they hear crisis and go, freak out. So, um, yeah. I didn't know this though. So you can drive as long as you are seizure free for a year. That's good to know. I had 5 episodes all within the. Oh, that's not good though. I had 5 episodes all within the first year and none since. That was 13 years ago. Oh, nice, nice. Okay, 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 good. I don't know why I thought you were gonna say you had like you can drive as long as you're seizure free for a year. So I had 5 episodes last year, and I was like, oh shit, okay, I read it right now correctly. Okay, got it, gotcha. All right, last video. Let's see what it's here for. Now, here's what I will say. This is where disabilities collide because um of all of like my impairments, I think my vision impairment is the worst. Um and like audio is probably the best. Even though I have a hard time processing audio sometimes. When there's a video to it, I can take it in. So I'm not somebody who's really great with audiobooks. If there's no visual component to the audio, I struggle with that. So I struggle with audio only, but I also struggle with like visual only. And I think it's because I have an impairment in both that like I need them to work together. So I can watch a video on 2x speed and process it and have a grand old time. But videos without audio and audio without video are really, they push the limits of my abilities and my capacity. And so as much as I'm like, yes, let's watch this video, I'm also like, okay, this is going to be some work because there's no audio and I'm going to have to read the captions. The captions are little as shit. I can't really see them. And me having to read the captions means I also can't take in the other information. So I can't really take in, their facial expression and body language and like the other stuff because I'm so focused on trying to see the captions. But I want to read the captions because sometimes people are just listening to this. And I do hate when people like see a comment and then they respond to the comment, but they never say what the comment is, especially if they don't put it on screen. I'm like, I don't know what you're responding to. I don't know what you're talking about here. So, anyways, this is like I said, this is when disabilities collide because here we go. We're about to put this to work. Hello, I'm Rogan and welcome. Today, as you probably already know from this title, I want to talk a little bit about the religious community and the deaf community. Their slightly strained relationship over time. I'm not going back to discuss about monks and their sign language and no, this is not a history lesson, no. Before I go into it, I want to say that I have no script for this. I didn't write down my thoughts or anything. I'm just throwing out what I think. This might be a mess, but we'll go with it. Deaf people may already know where I'm going with this. Part of the reason why I'm making this video now is because recently there's been an uptick in harassment of the deaf community from the religious community. Oh, really? Wait, recently there's been an uptick of harassment. This was filmed April 19th, 2019. So just before 420 in 2019. Okay, an uptick of harassment. Wow. I also like want to speed this up, but I don't know if I can read fast enough. So let's just keep it where it is for now. And that's not okay. When I say religious community, that's really broad. So let's just be more explicit. Yes, please. Typically, the harassment is from two major religions: Mormons and Jehovah's Witness. Okay, never mind. That makes sense. I know where this is going now. Those two Mormons, they're not as bad as Jehovah's Witnesses. Yeah, I know where this is going. I know where this is going. So, for those, I'm wondering like how much to like say it. Um, as somebody who like tried on a bunch of different religions for size and did a bunch of research and learned and went and practiced some of these different religions to see which one was going to be the best one for me. There were some religions that I was able to write off right away, like pretty quickly, like Jainism, right? Like, oh, heard about it, read about it, immediately no. Like immediately no. Like no problem. I didn't have to worry about should I practice this for a bit? Maybe I should do more research. It was like immediately no, right? Um, some other ones that were up there that were immediate no's, Jehovah's Witness, Mormon, and I almost like hesitate to say Scientology because I really don't want to dignify it by calling it a religion. But the fact that it is tax exempt and considered a religion, I'll go ahead and include it in there. But those were other ones that were like immediately no. Like you don't have to worry about me at all. Mormons, they didn't even like my kind, 8, 20, 30 years ago. Like, no, thank you. Hard pass, right? Like, curse of Cain and blah, blah, blah. Like, first of all, you have shit taste. Because if you can look at black people, if you can look at the melanin, like, if you can look at somebody like Lupita Nyong'o, Kofi Siriboe, like Black Witch Yaya, and you can look at that melanin and be like, God cursed you. You have bad taste. Something is wrong. Something is wrong in your brain because never once in my life did I look at that and go, "Oh no, that's bad." I was like, "God damn, that's beautiful." Right? Like you have bad taste. You know? It's like I didn't understand that the world thought that I was inherently not conventionally attractive because I do not have European features because I was my mom's twin, right? And my mom in my mind is gorgeous. So I'm like, "Oh, so a lot of Americans have bad taste, right?" Like I didn't go, "Oh, I'm ugly." I went, "Oh, y'all niggas got bad taste. Something's wrong. Something's wrong up here." And that's how I feel about like Jehovah's Witnesses and Mormons, right? Like I'm interested to see where this is going. I have a general overview and idea of why these two or these communities might be clashing, but I'm interested to hear from a deaf person what they're going to say. So let's find out. So those are the two groups I'm talking about right now. Generally, hearing people are aware of the door-to-door Mormons, Jehovah's Witness. Yep. Going up to people asking them to come to their church. Are they interested? Whatever. But generally, hearing people are used to telling them, I'm not interested. Please don't come again. I know where this is going. I knew it. Fucking hell. Generally, they respect that, as you would expect, yes? You would expect that once you say, no, I'm not interested, please don't come again, they don't. That's usually true for the most part. It's general courtesy, yeah. Now, in the deaf community, that doesn't happen, unfortunately. I figured it. Okay. Now, I don't know. It says every person who was somewhat involved with the deaf community either has experienced it themselves. Okay. I'm not 100% sure where they're going with this, but I have a feeling they're going with the fact that Mormons or Jehovah's Witnesses see deafness as some sort of curse or ailment or thing to be cured and prayed about and fixed. And I'm saying that based on the fact that for the longest, I would participate in church and I would have like deacons and like other preachers like laying hands on me saying, God, cure her from her sickle cell. Meanwhile, I'm looking up like, get your hands off of me. I didn't ask for that. I didn't ask you to pray for that. What are you doing? Like I very much found out pretty quickly, pretty young, and it lasted for a really long time that like a lot of Christians really believe like this is some curse and affliction that needs to be fixed and cured, and they pity me, and like it's just so gross in so many ways. And I can imagine that they would see deaf people, see them as less than, also not see them as fully capable, autonomous beings who get to decide they're good. They don't want any parts of your religion, but beings who need to be saved and cured and fixed. And I feel like that's where this is going. I don't know for sure, but we're going to find out if that's what's happening here because I can easily see Jehovah's Witnesses and Mormons both not taking deaf people serious because they're deaf and they look at them as dumb. They look at them as not knowing any better. They don't know, what they really want. We know better than them. Like, we're doing this for their own good type thing. You hear about it a lot with visibly disabled people that a lot of like hardcore Christians or Jehovah's Witness or Mormons will come up to them and ask if they can pray over them or just start praying over them and just be like, release this demon from, like this body, like just the most insulting shit you can imagine. And I'd be very surprised if that's not where this is going. But let's find out. Actually, hold on, because I just remember if I can be able to read and see this at the same time. Oh, good lord. Like it says, Bob said out says, thank you for defining that. I'm assuming you mean about crisis, having a vaso-occlusive crisis or sickle cell crisis. Um, yeah, have grand malls. God damn, figures go big or home, go home. Grand malls are no joke. So I'm happy that you don't have those anymore. Cause what the hell? Um, yep, smalls colliding repercussion. Yeah, yeah, it happens sometimes. And this happens when you have this is something I've dealt with for a while, and I don't have any type of resentment for it. I mean, that happens when you're in community with disabled people. Like a lot of times I tell people, um, it's a lot easier for me to consider other perspectives outside of my own because I'm in community with these people. Like I'm actually in community with other queer people and polyamorous people and deaf people and disabled people and like visibly disabled people and invisibly disabled people and neurodivergent people and intellectually disabled people. And like I'm actually in community with these people. So a lot of times I can hear feedback and whatever else. Um, but what I'm saying is very often you will have competing interests or repercussions or colliding accommodation needs, right? Whereas somebody's like, hey, I'm easily distracted. I need this to not happen. And the other person goes, oh, I actually need to do this thing because it helps me focus. And it's like, well, now who's right and who's wrong? Like, neither one. They're just competing interests in like needs and accommodations. And like, it just happens, right? Where somebody's like, I really need to not be on camera because my social anxiety is really, really bad. And I'm like on the verge of panic attacks and blah, blah, blah. Meanwhile, I'm like, it's really hard for me to have a call and have the person on camera because there's so much that I miss and I'm not processing. And there's so much more work that I'm doing mentally, cognitively to make it through that conversation. You have just competing interests and things like that. So, yeah, I get that. Um, Feel you for real. The darker the berry, the sweeter the juice. Yeah, that's definitely how I feel. Colonizing Christianity. It's interesting. I don't know if you're saying if you're using colonizing as the adjective or is it the verb? Like, is it like, are you calling Christianity like a colonizing religion? Because that's how I be looking at it. Like, Christianity is like inherently like for colonizers, it is the religion of the colonizer. That's how I look at it. But also, you could be saying like, oh, we need to decolonize Christianity or Christianity has been colonized, which I don't know, maybe that's true. There's a lot of bias, unworked bias there because I still think that Christianity is the religion of the colonizer. So I don't know. We'll see. Let's try to get through this. Every person who is somewhat involved in the deaf community has either experienced it themselves or knows someone who has personally experienced it. Mormons or Jehovah's Witness will come to our house. Understand this specifically to your house. Not door to door, no, specifically to to your house. The person who knocks on the door knows sign or at least can sign. Oh, okay. I didn't see that coming. That's even worse. That's even far more insidious. Rogan is saying, Rogan, right? Rogan is saying the person going to the homes of deaf and disabled people will have a base knowledge of sign. So we'll know that the people in the home need somebody who can sign, and the signing Jehovah's Witnesses and Mormons and missionaries have been sent specifically to that home, i.e., they've been targeted. Okay, I got it. Not okay. First, okay, that's nice. It's nice that they're thinking of, oh, they're deaf. So let's have someone come who can sign. But the thing is, if you have never had any person come knocking on your door, asking if you want to come to their church, how do they know you're deaf? Um, y'all, I'm fading. I don't know. I can't keep reading this. Mormons, Jehovah's Witnesses, yes, Jehovah's Witnesses. They have some kind of database with a list of death. They do not. Okay, if y'all missed that, the, Rogan is saying there is a database with a list, some kind of database with a list of deaf people and where they live. That is terrifying and problematic on so many levels. I don't even know where to start. What? Generally don't curse on this channel, but that's fucking creepy. Yeah, that is very creepy. I'm lucky to have never experienced this. The point is, how is it okay for you to have that kind of information when we didn't give you that information? That's okay. That was the point I was trying to figure out. The keeping of the database is one thing, but my thing is, how was it established? Who gave you their information to originally put in there? Was it y'all think about that? Like, why do you have a database full of the deaf and hard of hearing people in your area and where they live? Oh hell no! It's giving Pink Triangle, and I hate it. I hate everything about it. Who's giving you that information? Where are you getting that? Deaf community sees that as a strong invasion of our privacy. Yeah, I agree. Often these people will come, we'll tell them, no, we're not interested, leave. You don't have to tell them, please don't come back, don't bother me. They will still obstinate. That's not okay. Mormon, Jehovah's Witness, whatever they tend to look at it as. Oh man, they have to save these people. They don't have God. Oh man. Rogan is saying they grew up religion but don't practice. They grew up Christian but don't practice religion. It's not for them. Nothing against religion. No, I think it absolutely has a place for people. When you approach religion, the fact that we have to put so many disclaimers when talking to these groups about these groups is so wild to me. Names, addresses written down, targeting people like that, ignoring the request to leave them alone. So if they don't have the knowledge to tell them no, okay. I'm not interested. Stop. Okay, so we're gonna stop it right there. Um, that's wild and so fucking disrespectful. Okay, okay. We're gonna okay. I've got some more research to do, but also I've got some. I'm gonna be asking some folks to join in on this because oh thanks Yeah, yeah. So I was reading it not just for you, but for because even though this won't stay up, this will be used future footage, and even if it's not, I still try to make it as accessible as possible. So I was reading it not just for you but for anybody else who may see this in the future. But also this right here, I would follow his sign, but I'm not good enough. Yeah, I can't do it. I'm not fast enough. um I just, there's just so much that I don't remember in terms of vocabulary. So that's that on that. Here's what I was about to say though. Let me see. We're gonna call it a day for now because I do want to bring on some people. Like the next time we have this conversation, I want to actually hear from some folks about this. Um, mm, that was fascinating. There does need to be a conversation about the way that religion looks at disability and marginalized communities in general, right? Like, because religion does have this sort of like air about them, like this elitism, this Jesus fixes everything. Like, and I'm saying Jesus because it's not, even though it's not just Christianity, a lot of the problem is Christians. Christians be wilding. Christians be wilding. And I really try to be unbiased. I do, because we're supposed to be at six. So I'm trying to be like, we love everybody and like all the religions are. I just have a hard time with Christianity, and I know I still need to like unpack a lot of things and like unlearn and undo and whatever some things. But some of y'all Christians need to unlearn Christianity. Y'all need to unlearn the colonized version of Christianity. Y'all really do. Y'all really do. Um, because shit like this, not okay. Not okay. Like what are we doing? What are we doing? Going to, why do you have a database full of disabled and okay. All right. I'm gonna go now. Um, thank you for joining us. Um, yes, you need to rest. How much longer are you there for? I'm hoping to get out tomorrow morning. That's my goal. Fingers crossed. I'm saying that. Um, I'm hoping to get out tomorrow. So we're gonna see. It's kind of up to me, but also my doctor was like very much like, don't lie. Like, cause like I could lie, right? I could be like, I feel great. I feel better. I can go home right now. And my doctor be like, all right, bet. But if I'm not actually better, I'm gonna just end up back here or I'm gonna be at home stuck, you know? So he in like the nicest, kindest way, like reminded me of that and was just like, you can go home when you want, but stop playing. Like don't play games, right? Like just make sure you're better. And also told me to like slow down because I've been trying to get off this medication that I'm on. Well, or rather trying to find an alternative. I could just get off of it, but I'm just trying to find an alternative. So that's that on that. I'm gonna try to get some rest and get out of here and try to think through some things. Not tonight. I'm gonna try to watch some videos in my watch later tab. Probably gonna watch this Jada video. I got some Stephanie Sue videos to catch up on, some FD Signifier videos to catch up on. I got a lot of videos I get to catch up on. I get to watch. I probably will make it 5 minutes into the video before I'm knocked the F out. Especially since I think my meds are due probably like right now. So I'm gonna get out of here. I'm gonna go do that. And I appreciate y'all. Appreciate Upside Down for kicking it with me. Good to know you out here on the West Coast. Uh Still up, hanging out. I appreciate it. Yeah, yeah, you're right. Go home when you should, not when you want. I know. Cause when I came in, I was like, all right, I'm gonna just go to the ER and I'm gonna go home. I am not getting admitted. Like I was so sure I wasn't getting admitted, but I went to another hospital and that was a mistake. And that really set me back and made things worse. And then I got to the hospital I'm at now, and I was like, all right, fine. I'm gonna just be here overnight, and then I'm gonna go home in the morning. Psych. And then I was like, all right, bet, fine. But by Wednesday, I'm going home though. I'm going home for real, like for sure. I'm going home. And I was actually supposed to do a live yesterday, Wednesday, but I was stuck in the ER. I didn't have a private room yet, and so I couldn't do a live because I was planning to do this yesterday during our regular scheduled live stream time and couldn't. So it's fine. It's whatever. I'm gonna do what I gotta do, and then yeah, I'm gonna go home when I should, not when I want, and that's it. You as well. Upside down. Sleep well. Be well. Don't forget to sign up for Discord when you do sign up. Hit me up. Hello, Swanky. Um, and that's it. So Sure call, y'all. Wahiguruji Kakaso Wahiguruji Kifate. Smalls, but I'm gone. Peace, y'all. You're my jelly, PB. That's funny. I like that. Love you back. Hope you. Thank you. I hope you feel better. Well, I appreciate the well wishes about feeling better. My bad about the mic. Have a good night. Rest and recharge well. Peace.